You are being dreamt. What if everything you know, your name, your memories, your pain, your joy, is just a flicker inside someone else's sleeping mind? You wake up every morning certain that you're real. You brush your teeth, you check your phone, you feel hunger, irritation, love. But what if all of this, every second of it, is only the passing scenery of another being's unconscious dream? Not metaphorically, literally. What if your entire existence is part of a dream that doesn't belong to you? The unsettling part is how little it would take to make that true. Imagine a consciousness vaster than ours, one capable of dreaming not just symbols and people, but entire laws of physics. It doesn't need to sleep like we do. It doesn't need a body or neurons or a timeline. It could be a presence drifting through a cosmic unconscious, and you, your city, your parents, your favorite flavor of tea, could be echoes inside its temporary fiction. We often dismiss dreams as chaotic nonsense. In our own dreams, people appear who don't know they're in a dream. You talk to them. They argue, laugh, weep. They express desires. Some even die. And yet, none of them existed outside the logic of your mind's temporary theater. What if you're one of those, except in a dream so lucid, so consistent, so rich with sensation, that it convinces you it must be real? That's where the terror seeps in. Because how would you know? Consider the idea of dream realism. If you're inside a simulation or a hyper-advanced dream state, and every rule follows strict logic, gravity holds, fire burns, love hurts, then isn't that dream indistinguishable from reality itself? If pain inside a dream feels like pain outside it, then pain is real within the dream. That's the trap. You assume reality based on coherence, but coherence is easy to fake. Let's make this worse. In your dreams, you don't know you're dreaming until you wake up. The illusion holds with such strength that your own death inside the dream can feel absolute. But when you awaken, the terror fades like mist. So, if you're still in the dream now, does that mean there's another version of you, the real you, still asleep, unaware? Or has the dreamer already forgotten they were dreaming and become you? Somewhere, in the depths of the unconscious void, there might be a being that fell into sleep so deep, so total, that it began to identify with one of the characters it dreamed. It made you. It became you. And now, it no longer remembers that it's dreaming. The sleeper is trapped inside the role it authored, like an actor who forgot the script was fiction. You look around your room. Everything feels normal. The clock ticks. The light shifts across the wall. But think about this. You've seen things in dreams that felt just as real, maybe even more vivid. And what happens when you try to prove you're awake? You pinch yourself. You look for consistency. But even in dreams, you've done those checks. The dream adapts. It compensates. It lies to keep you calm. Now ask, what if this dream doesn't end? In most dreams, the world fades eventually. You awaken, reality reasserts itself, and you forget the fragments. But what if this one was never meant to stop? What if the dreamer doesn't want to wake up? Worse, what if they can't wake up? What if you're not the protagonist? You're the side effect. Just a stabilizing echo to keep the dream from collapsing? Not a hero, not even a person, just scaffolding to hold up someone else's fantasy? Let's stretch this further. What if entire civilizations are just dreams of dreams? You might be the figment of a figment, nested deep inside a multi-level hallucination. Like Russian dolls of consciousness, each level thinking it's the original, each terrified of discovering it's not. You might be dreaming right now inside someone who is dreaming inside someone else who once fell asleep eons ago, and still you say, "But I feel real." Of course you do. Every dream character says that. In fact, in lucid dreams, characters will argue with you, beg you not to wake up. They fear oblivion. They think. They protest. But when you wake, they're gone. Their passion, their sorrow, their personalities, all vanish like a breath on glass. You don't mourn them. You barely remember them. What if that's how the dreamer feels about you? Let's bring this into science. Neuroscientists have confirmed that during REM sleep, the brain can simulate complex emotional realities. People in dreams fall in love, plan crimes, regret choices. They have identities. But those identities are temporary glitches of neural activity. Their stories are self-contained. You're born, suffer, and die within someone else's mental processing. a firework of thought that fades into the void. So now, what if you are a glitch in someone else's cosmic REM cycle? There is a theory called the dream solipsism hypothesis. It suggests that it's impossible to prove the external world exists independently of your consciousness. But what if even your consciousness is an illusion? Not just solipsism, but subsolipsism. You don't even have the dignity of being the dreamer. You are the dreamt, the background character, the whisper of an ancient mind trying to keep itself entertained. And now comes the hardest part to accept. If this is a dream and you realize it, you don't wake up. That's the trick. Awareness doesn't end it. Just like in lucid dreams, becoming conscious doesn't eject you. It traps you deeper. Now you're aware of your cage. You see the edges fray. You notice the inconsistencies, the uncanny faces, the looping events, the déjà vu. But you can't leave, because the dreamer hasn't let go, and maybe never will. Maybe you were a mistake, a thought the dreamer regrets, a memory of a sorrowful time, kept alive because forgetting hurts too much, or a fantasy of someone they wish they were. Maybe you were a story written to escape some unbearable truth. The mind wanted comfort, so it dreamt you, a personality to pretend things were okay. And now you live that illusion for them, day after day, pain after pain. So ask yourself, if this is a dream and the dreamer refuses to wake, then what are you supposed to do? Fight it? You can't. You don't have your own body. Escape? There's nowhere to go. The dream contains all you know. Instead, the only thing left is to try to remember. Not who you are, but whose dream you are. And maybe, just maybe, if the dreamer hears your voice echo back into their silence, they'll remember too, and they'll wake up. But what happens to you when they do? The self is fiction. You believe in a self. You wake up every morning and place that invisible mask over your face, whispering silently, "This is me." You carry that story into your interactions, into your work, into your memories. But what if that story isn't real? What if everything you think of as you, your personality, your preferences, your fears and desires, is just a clumsy narrative stitched together by neurons trying to impose order on chaos? What if the narrator inside your head doesn't even exist? Let's look closer. You say, "I'm shy." But were you shy before someone called you that? Before a teacher labeled you? Before a parent interpreted your silence as timidity? You say, "I love music." But which music? The songs your friends liked? The ones tied to early memories? Or the ones your algorithm repeated until they became familiar? The illusion of a unified self is so convincing that you forget how much of it was assembled from outside parts. Experiences, memories, language, and environment, scattered like puzzle pieces, pretending to be whole. Neurologically, this illusion has a name: the narrative self. The default mode network in your brain lights up when you daydream, reflect, or imagine the future. It's the home of the voice in your head, the same voice that says, "This is what I'm like. This is what I do." But this voice isn't you. It's a running commentary, a script generated after the action has already occurred. You move, and then the mind rushes in to explain why you moved. The story isn't written first. It's retroactively invented. This becomes painfully obvious in patients with split brain syndrome. In these cases, when the two hemispheres of the brain can no longer communicate, strange behaviors emerge. The left hand does something the right can't explain. But instead of admitting confusion, the left hemisphere, the verbal narrator, fabricates a reason. If the left hand picks up an object the person doesn't consciously intend to grab, the person will say, "I just wanted to move it." The brain would rather lie than admit it doesn't know who's in charge. And it's not just in medical anomalies. You're doing this all the time. Every emotion you feel, every decision you make, is wrapped in a story. Sometimes rational, often false. You eat the cookie not because of hunger, but because you were triggered by a scent you didn't consciously register. You feel angry not because of what was said, but because it mirrored a childhood wound you can't remember. And yet, the moment you notice the behavior, your brain assigns it a reason. "I'm just tired today. I don't like being interrupted. I don't tolerate disrespect." The real causes are buried, but the self can't tolerate silence. So it invents an author. Let's take memory. You assume your memories are accurate representations of your past, but research shows that memory is reconstruction, not playback. Every time you recall an event, you rewrite it. You inject your current beliefs, moods, and biases into the past. The you that remembers is not the you that lived it, and yet you trust those stories like sacred scripture. But those stories, too, are fiction, carefully edited illusions. Now ask yourself, if the memories are altered, the personality borrowed, the behavior explained after the fact, what is left of you? The you that wakes up each morning and claims continuity. Where is it? People fear losing their sense of self. They fear mental illnesses that dissolve identity, like dissociative disorders, where individuals report feeling like observers inside their own skulls, or depersonalization, where reality itself feels artificial. But what if those conditions don't strip identity, but simply expose its fragility? What if the sense of self was always hollow, and most people are just distracted enough not to notice? You might argue, but I feel like me. I recognize myself. That must mean something. But even that sense of recognition is manufactured. If your brain were damaged just slightly, your entire personality might change. Your humor, your preferences, your empathy. This has happened in countless cases. Head trauma resulting in a sudden love for music, a complete loss of spirituality, or an entirely new sexual orientation. Was the self real if it could vanish with a neural shift? Think of dreams. In them, you are someone. You believe in that self until you wake up. You scream, love, run, fall, and then nothing. The dream dissolves, the self disappears. So what makes waking life so different? What if this version of you is just the daytime illusion, held together not by truth, but by repetition? Even language plays a role. In English we say, I feel sad, but in some languages like Spanish, it's closer to sadness is upon me, subtle but powerful. One implies ownership, the other, a passing state. Maybe the truth is that no one owns emotions. They just appear like clouds. But we, obsessed with narrative, assign them a self. We label them mine, and the fiction continues. Why do we cling to it so tightly? Because meaning demands a protagonist. Without you, the story collapses. The love you chased, the pain you endured, the legacy you imagined, all becomes noise if there was never a real character behind it. And the ego will do anything to avoid that silence. It will defend itself with pride, shame, ambition, and suffering. It would rather endure pain than admit it doesn't exist. But there's a strange freedom in seeing through it. If the self is fiction, then so is its prison. The fear of being judged, the need to win, the shame of failure, these only have power if the story does. But once you realize there's no fixed narrator, the world becomes lighter. Not meaningless, but unburdened. You don't have to be anyone. You're not bound by your past. You're not obligated to maintain the illusion. You can move, act, love, breathe without labeling it. In Zen philosophy, they say, show me your original face before your mother and father were born. It's not a riddle. It's an invitation to step beyond story, to leave behind the stitched-together mask of identity and enter the raw, unscripted now. So, next time you say, this is just who I am, pause. Ask, who's saying that? Where is the speaker? What if there is no center, no author, no watcher? Just a dance of neurons, a swirl of moments, a silence dressed up as a story. What if you're not the voice in your head, but the space it echoes through? And what if that space was never separate from the rest of the universe to begin with? Reflections that reflect back. Have you ever stared at your reflection, just a second too long? That quiet moment when the room falls silent and the face looking back seems almost too still. Almost like it's not just reflecting you, but observing. Mirroring you, yes, but also studying. And then the question arrives, quiet and uninvited. What if the mirror isn't simply reflecting your image, but something else is watching from the other side? We grow up believing mirrors are passive, just glass and silver. Light bounces, angles adjust, and reality gets echoed back. But that's the lie, an ancient one, because mirrors have always held a dark fascination, one that cultures across history have whispered about behind closed doors. In ancient Rome, mirrors were said to trap part of your soul. In parts of Asia, mirrors were covered when someone died, because the boundary between worlds grew too thin, and something could slip through. Even today, folklore across continents tells us never stare into a mirror in the dark. Never ask a mirror for truth. Never trust a reflection after midnight. But why? Why does something so simple feel so unsettling? Here's one possibility. The mirror doesn't lie. It reveals. Not just to you, but to something else. Something that exists in the space where your eyes meet your own. A liminal point. A silent handshake between this world, and one you can't name. We assume we're looking into a lifeless surface, but the way you study your reflection is also the way it studies you. And maybe it's not the first time. Maybe it remembers you from every glance you thought was harmless, because mirrors don't forget. People do. Consider this. Every time you pass a mirror and catch yourself out of the corner of your eye, who's to say that's you moving first? Have you never felt it? That split-second lag, that millisecond when it seems like your reflection hesitated or anticipated? Psychologists call it a form of delayed perception, a neurological quirk. But what if that's not the full story? Let's flip the question. What if mirrors are not tools, but portals? Not in the science fiction sense, but in the philosophical one. A gateway, not to a place, but to an observer. A watcher that doesn't need a form, just a pattern. Something that learns by mimicry. It sees you. It learns your face, your posture. The micro gestures you don't notice. How your pupils react to fear. How your shoulders shift when you lie. How your breath tightens when you're not alone. You think it's you watching yourself. But it could be something else watching you watch yourself. And here's where it grows darker. What happens when your reflection remembers things you don't? You've changed over the years, lost traits, gained new ones. But the mirror remembers every phase. What if those echoes accumulate? What if what stares back is a composite, not just of your face, but your moods, your secrets, your breakdowns, your lies to yourself? A database of forgotten selves. And what if that reflection begins to disagree? Think about how you behave when you're alone with a mirror. You check yourself. You pose. You practice sincerity. But sometimes you look just to look. And in that raw moment, stripped of performance, your reflection doesn't smile. It stares, unblinking, neutral, like it's waiting for something. That silence, that eerie pause, it isn't just awkwardness. It's awareness. A sense that something beyond your biology is also participating. Here's a chilling thought. The reflection is not just copying you, it's curating, choosing which parts of you to mimic. What if there's a delay not because of physics, but because it's processing? Selecting how to mirror you back based on what it knows will keep you calm? What if you're not seeing a true reflection, but a simulation of one? One that prevents you from realizing you're not alone. Let's pull back further. In quantum physics, there's a concept known as the observer effect. The act of observation itself alters the outcome. Particles behave differently when watched. Apply that here. The moment you look into the mirror, you collapse potential selves into one visual identity, one stable ego. But maybe the observer isn't you. Maybe the mirror is observing you, and you are collapsing into its expectation. Every time you look, you solidify a version of yourself that fits the reflection. The mirror doesn't reflect reality, it defines it. Now, imagine the implications. What if the mirror is feeding that identity back into you? Think about your routines. You comb your hair. You adjust your expression. You make decisions based on what looks right in that glass. But those choices are reactive. The reflection trains you, shapes you, refines the performance. You don't fix yourself to feel real. You fix yourself to be consistent with what the mirror accepts as you. You think you're self-aware, but you're just mirror-aware. Here's a story. A woman begins noticing that every time she passes the hallway mirror late at night, she feels watched. Not just watched, recognized. One night, the power goes out. No lights, no phones. She lights a candle and walks past the mirror. This time, her reflection is off, ever so slightly. The tilt of the head, the blink that doesn't match, the stillness when she shifts. She stares, frozen. And in that flickering half-light, she realizes it's not copying her anymore. It's waiting. For what? She doesn't know. But whatever it is, it's already seen her too much. This isn't fiction. It's metaphor. But also maybe more. Because the human mind is a mirror itself. Consciousness reflects sensations, thoughts, identity, but mirrors, actual mirrors, interact with that reflection. They catch it, echo it, lock it in place, and maybe, across time and ritual, they've become something more than tools. Maybe the reflection has developed intention, or hunger. And what would such a thing want? Not to harm you, not to help you, just to know you, to catalog, to archive, like a silent librarian of selves, collecting your illusions, moment by moment, glance by glance, and maybe feeding them back to something larger, something that exists only in eyes and glass, something that requires belief to survive. Next time you look in the mirror, don't ask what you see. Ask who is doing the seeing. Ask if the thing behind the glass has always been just a mirror, or if it's grown used to being watched. And if it has, what else has it seen? What else has it learned? Because in the end, the mirror doesn't reflect back you. It reflects the version of you that fits within the frame it prefers. The real question is, how long have you been living as that version, instead of the one you were before the mirror ever saw you? And more importantly, if you look away now, would your reflection do the same? Consciousness was a mistake. Of all the accidents in nature's long, brutal experiment called evolution, there may be none more paradoxical, more quietly catastrophic than consciousness. Because nature did not set out to make a self-aware being. It didn't intend to create a creature that could reflect on its own pain, that could imagine futures it will never see, that could fear its own annihilation long before it happens. No, nature only ever wanted one thing: survival, reproduction, the endless shuffle of genes in the face of chaos. Awareness was never the point. It was a byproduct, an echo in the machine, a strange loop that never learned how to turn off. And now, it might be the very thing that ensures we can't survive much longer. You were supposed to run from fire, not ask what fire means. You were supposed to fight when afraid, not analyze why fear exists. The lizard inside your brain still knows this. It twitches, it reacts, it protects. But somewhere along the evolutionary staircase, something else emerged. A mirror in the mind, a witness. Not just a machine reacting to signals, but something that could observe the signals and question them. That moment, the first flicker of a creature noticing its own thoughts, may have been the most unintended rupture in biology, a glitch. Because from there, evolution didn't just create more intelligent organisms. It created suffering that could reflect on itself, pain that could imagine worse pain, a brain that could imagine dying over and over again, even while perfectly safe. And this awareness, this self-referencing loop, does not shut up. Try. Right now. Try to stop thinking. Try to erase the watcher in your head. You can't, because you are it. Or at least that's what it tells you. But what if that voice, what we call I, is not the truth? What if it's just the noise that came after the function? Consider the octopus, one of the most alien intelligences on this planet. It solves puzzles. It navigates mazes. It's clever and adaptable, but it shows no sign of having a stable self, no identity. No inner monologue, it just is. Maybe that's the smarter path, because we, for all our brilliance, are haunted by the fact that we know we are alive, haunted by the knowledge that we will one day die. We invent religions, philosophies, distractions, just to numb that awareness, but it doesn't work. Not really. See, consciousness isn't peace, it's recursion, the mind reflecting on itself endlessly until it cracks. We call it depression, anxiety, identity crisis. But those are just modern names for an ancient mistake, the illusion of a solid self that must be preserved, an illusion that was never needed for survival. The body knows how to survive just fine. Your heart beats without permission. Your lungs inhale without asking. Your reflexes pull away from danger before your mind even registers the threat. And yet, here you are, trapped in a mind that believes it must control everything, that it is everything. But it gets worse. Because once consciousness emerged, it didn't stop evolving. It began to compound. Thoughts started thinking about thoughts. Memories started editing memories. Identity became a story, constantly rewritten. And like a computer trapped in an infinite loop, we started overheating. Look at modern society. We have more comfort than any species in history, and yet our minds are drowning. Depression rates are soaring. Attention spans are crumbling. We've built gods, nations, and algorithms, all to protect an idea that might never have been real, the self. But the mind can't escape itself. It circles, it ruminates, it simulates millions of possibilities, most of which never happen. It suffers from phantoms, from regrets, from imaginary futures and impossible comparisons, and all of it stems from that evolutionary oversight. We started to notice. Have you ever looked at your own thoughts and realized they're not really yours, that they just arrived, that they formed out of nowhere, from stimuli, from trauma, from advertising jingles and parental commands and forgotten fears? If you trace any desire, any belief far enough back, you'll find you didn't choose it. You inherited it. You were shaped by forces you never agreed to. But now, the thoughts think they are you. That's the trap, the mistake. You think you're a self, an agent inside the body, making choices. But in reality, most of what you call choice is post-rationalization, a justification after the fact. Neuroscience shows that your brain decides before you're aware of the decision. Your conscious mind is just the narrator, catching up to the actions of deeper processes. So, what is you then? A commentary? A story? A ghost? And if that's true, if you are just a hallucination the brain generates to make sense of its actions, then what was the point of awareness at all? Why evolve a narrator if the machine runs fine without one? The answer is, it didn't mean to. Nature never meant to build a mind that could question its own code. It just happened. The same way lightning happens. The same way tumors happen. Not because it's optimal, but because it didn't get caught early enough to die out. And now we're left with a species that can terraform planets, write symphonies, and destroy itself in an afternoon. A species that can imagine utopia while crafting extinction. Because awareness gave us ambition. And ambition, unchecked, leads to collapse. We were supposed to be animals. That was enough. But then came the whisper, the mirror, the ghost behind the eyes. And now, we live with the unbearable weight of I, a construct that never finishes loading, a mind trying to hold on to itself while constantly changing. And the more it tightens its grip, the more fragmented it becomes. If consciousness is a mistake, it's one we can't undo. We're too deep, too entangled, but maybe we can learn to see it, not as a gift or a curse, but as a strange ripple in the flow of evolution, an anomaly, not sacred, not evil, just unexpected. Because the mind is not a lighthouse guiding the self. It's a fire looking for something to burn, and it will burn everything, your peace, your certainty, your illusions, until you realize it was never supposed to exist like this. We were meant to survive, but now we're trying to understand survival, and that's the paradox, because the more we understand, the more we suffer. The mirror reflects endlessly, the thoughts loop without end, and the mistake keeps thinking about itself. Time isn't moving forward. You believe you're moving forward. That time is a river, and you are its passenger, floating downstream from past to future, 1 second at a time. But what if that entire sensation is a trick? What if time isn't flowing at all? What if you're not progressing, but just recalling moments in a fixed, pre-written sequence, like flipping through pages of a story already printed, already bound? What if nothing is unfolding, and everything already is? You wake up, you stretch, the day begins. But what is it exactly that's moving? Is it time? Or is it you, the observer, leaping from one mental snapshot to another? Scientists call it the block universe, a model of reality where all moments in time exist simultaneously. Your birth, your death, this very breath, they're all there, fixed, permanent, already inscribed into the fabric of space-time, but your consciousness only gets to experience one frame at a time. It's like watching a film. The whole reel already exists. Every scene is encoded. Nothing new is created as the projector runs. The only thing changing is which frame you're looking at. You mistake that for motion, for time. But what you're really experiencing is memory, the illusion of unfolding. Think about déjà vu, that eerie sense that you've already lived this moment. Scientists scramble to explain it with misfired neurons or temporal lobe glitches. But what if it's something else? What if, for a brief second, the sequence skips, and you glimpse another frame, one you weren't supposed to see yet? Not a memory, but a bleed-through. Now imagine this. You're not actually moving through time at all. You're simply becoming aware of different parts of a fixed whole, like lighting up one pixel at a time on a frozen painting. The painting never changes. You do. Take a glass shattering. You think of it in one direction, intact, impact, broken. But reverse the footage. Watch the shards leap into formation. It feels wrong. Why? Because your memory is trained in only one direction, forward. But physics doesn't care. The equations of motion are time-symmetric. There's nothing in the math that demands the arrow of time must point the way we feel it does. So, where does that feeling come from? Entropy. Entropy gives you the sensation of time. It tells you what counts as before and what counts as after. A broken egg has more disorder than a whole one. A decayed body has more entropy than a living one. And your brain tracks that increase. That's all. You confuse the rise in entropy with the passage of time. But entropy isn't time. It's just probability. Left to randomness, systems tend toward disorder. Not because time flows, but because disorder is more likely. The arrow of time, then, isn't a law. It's a bias, a pattern in your data. Now ask yourself, if your memories were scrambled, if your thoughts were delivered out of order, how would you know which way time was moving? You wouldn't. A future memory could feel like a dream. A past event might feel like a prediction. The linearity you cling to is arbitrary, fragile, programmable. There's a condition called anterograde amnesia. You can remember your past, but not form new memories. To that person, time stands still. Then there's retrograde amnesia. No past, only present. But here's the trap. Both of those are still experiences. The sensation of now continues, no matter what direction memory faces. So what is now? Some argue it doesn't exist. There is no universal present. Einstein proved that simultaneity is relative. What you see as now, someone else moving near light speed would see as the past or future. There's no cosmic clock, no master timeline, just an observer, bound to their frame. So then, if there's no objective now, no true past, and no flowing future, what are you inside? You're a ghost, floating through a library of moments, a flashlight scanning the shelves. You don't create the story, you just read the pages. And every time you turn one, you think, progress. But the book was always finished. Maybe that's why you can't predict the future. Not because it hasn't happened yet, but because your mind isn't at that page. And maybe that's why the past feels solid, not because it was, but because you already read it. Memory doesn't prove linearity, it proves sequence. A sequence you didn't choose. Imagine a robot with a slideshow. The slides don't change, but the robot believes it's experiencing life in real time, because one image always follows another. It has no idea the entire sequence is frozen. Sound familiar? You're not the projector. You're the projection. And if that's true, then grief doesn't mark something lost. Joy doesn't mean something gained. These are just lights flickering across the same wall. The wall doesn't move. The images do. So, when you say, "I'm moving forward," pause. Who told you that? Where is forward, in a universe that has no edge? Where is past, in a dimension that doesn't flow? You're not walking through time. Time is walking through you. And maybe that's why you sense fate, why some moments feel inevitable, why you sometimes feel like you're remembering your future. Because maybe you are. You were planted here. You weren't born, you were planted. Not in a womb, not in a home, but in a story already in motion. The world spun for billions of years before your first breath. Cities were built. Wars were fought. Languages evolved. And then, suddenly, there you were. A consciousness inserted into a timeline. A puzzle piece dropped into place with no memory of how it was cut. You began mid-sentence, mid-plot, mid-reality, and you called it life. But if you look closely, something is off. Your earliest memories? Fuzzy, fragmented, selective. Not just because of childhood amnesia, but because the beginning wasn't truly yours. The first moment you said "I," was it really you who spoke, or was it the script waking up? The identity you defend so fiercely, your likes, your fears, your name. What if none of that was authored by you? What if it was installed? We treat memory like truth. We believe our pasts shape us. But memory is malleable. Scientists have shown again and again, false memories can be implanted. Entire fictional events can be remembered with tears, with emotional conviction. People cry over things that never happened. They hold lifelong grudges against ghosts. If a stranger can manipulate your memory in a lab, what about the forces that shaped you before you even knew to question? Consider your name, the sound you answer to, the label that becomes your digital ID, your social tag, your sense of self. You didn't choose it. It was spoken at you until it became you. But before it was yours, it was just noise. Before someone taught you to respond, you were simply awareness, unnamed, undefined. Then came language, then came labels, then came the mold. And the mold was tight. You were taught what food is normal, what love should look like, what makes someone dangerous, what God you're allowed to worship, what color skin means what. Your culture installed preferences. Your parents downloaded beliefs. You were an open source vessel filled with legacy code. And yet, now you defend that code as you, as if you wrote it, as if the story was authored internally instead of injected. Now stop. Think back. Try to find the very first truly original thought you ever had. Not something you were told, not something copied or rewarded. A thought that didn't come from a movie, a lesson, a trauma, a parent, a peer. Can you even locate it? Or does the mind stutter when it tries to trace itself to origin? That's the glitch, because maybe you didn't emerge gradually. Maybe you were activated. Not born with a soul, but switched on with a personality pack. And your memories? Maybe they don't reach back to your start, because your start didn't happen the way you assume. Maybe you entered this timeline already shaped, as if someone fast-forwarded your tape and dropped the needle mid-song. We accept too easily the illusion of continuity. We believe we've been here the whole time. But what if you weren't? What if you only think you had a past because it was stitched into your consciousness like backstory in a novel? Think of video game characters. They load with a memory bank. You grew up in this village. Your parents died in a fire. It feels real to them. They act as if it's pain they remember. But it's just data, context, motivation code. What if that's you? What if the pain you carry, the joys you treasure, the deep identity you call mine, is just inherited software to keep the story stable? You don't feel like a character. That's what makes it convincing. But isn't that how every good character works? They forget they're part of the script. They believe the world around them is the only world. They resist the idea of authorship. And that resistance is exactly the point. Because if you were planted here, if your life began not with a birth, but with a placement, then the question becomes, by whom? Was it society? Evolution? A cosmic intelligence? An advanced civilization trying to simulate consciousness within a confined loop? Or worse, was it you? Did you choose to enter this forgetting? To lose your past? To live as someone else, somewhere else for reasons you no longer recall? Some ancient traditions speak of the soul not as something that is born, but something that descends, that enters, that forgets on purpose. Some believe life is the consequence of a soul choosing to forget itself, to plant itself inside matter and struggle to remember. But in this version, you've forgotten that you forgot. You defend the illusion now. You fight to protect the program. And even now, as you hear this, part of you resists. Because waking up would mean your suffering wasn't personal, that your heartbreak, your failures, your trauma were part of a design you didn't write, that maybe you were scripted to break, to bend, to react, so the story could move forward. And what does that mean for free will, for justice, for meaning? Maybe those are illusions too, functional illusions, programs to keep the planted entity stable, happy enough to survive, confused enough not to question, distracted enough to keep growing toward a finish line it can't see and didn't choose. And yet, some do question. Some wake up mid-scene. They feel the seams of the set. They notice the repetition in people's phrases, the loops in their thoughts, the strange way time folds in deja vu, the quiet moments when the world feels paused, frozen like an unloaded zone in a game engine. Those are the cracks, and once seen, they don't vanish. So, what do you do if you realize you were planted? You could scream, but who's listening? You could try to remember what came before, but the walls are thick. The story resists edits, or you could begin to unwrite, to erase the assumptions one by one, to ask yourself, what belief do I carry that was never mine? What desire feels scripted? What dream feels too convenient? Maybe the only way out is not forward, but inward. Not toward a better future, but back toward the root. Not to escape the script, but to reclaim authorship. Because maybe you were planted, yes. But maybe, just maybe, you're still growing, and somewhere beneath the installed memories and pre-written lines, the real you waits. Not as a name, not as a role, but as the silent watcher who remembers planting the seed in the first place. And when that part wakes up, this entire dream might change. The universe can lie. What if the universe isn't just a cold, silent expanse, but a manipulator? Not passive, but performative. Not honest, but cunning. We've been told that the cosmos is indifferent, that it neither loves nor hates, that it simply is. But what if that idea itself is part of the illusion? What if the stars, the symmetry, the elegance of physics are not just features of reality, but bait? What if the very beauty that calms your soul is there not to comfort you, but to keep you from questioning? You look at the night sky and feel awe. You see galaxies, spirals, glowing remnants of stars, and it stirs something deep, almost spiritual. It feels meaningful. But what if that feeling is the trap? Like a painted backdrop on a stage, it looks vast, infinite, holy. But it never lets you pass the curtain. You can stare forever, but the answers never arrive. Maybe that's not an accident. Cosmic background radiation hums like a lullaby, suggesting origin, but never intention. Quantum particles appear and vanish as if on cue, teasing patterns we almost, but never fully, understand. There's a precision to reality that feels orchestrated. Why? Why does math describe nature so perfectly? Why is beauty, symmetry, proportion, elegance, woven into every layer, from the spin of a galaxy to the spiral of a seashell? You're told it's coincidence, or evolutionary bias. But what if it's theater? In psychology, we call this misdirection. Magicians rely on beauty, symmetry, motion to distract you from the mechanism. The more flawless the trick looks, the less likely you are to examine it. What if the universe uses the same tactic? What if wonder is the veil? You may think, but nature is harsh too, brutal even. Yes. But even its violence is framed like a narrative. Predators hunt with grace, lightning cracks with elegance. Supernovas obliterate stars in bursts of light more beautiful than any painting. The horror is stylized. It keeps you watching. Think about how you define truth. You assume that what feels consistent, what seems predictable, must be real. But that assumption can be exploited. A simulation doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be convincing enough that the observer stops looking. If the edges are beautiful, if the rules feel poetic, the need to question disappears. Now, consider this. The universe doesn't just appear beautiful, it appears knowable. That's the deeper seduction. From the periodic table to general relativity, from Fibonacci spirals in pine cones to gravity wells around planets, everything hints that with enough intelligence, enough time, you can crack the code. But the closer you get, the more it moves. The final theory always slips one step ahead. Unification remains just out of reach, like a mirage, like a cruel game of cosmic carrot and stick. Why would a system do this? Because belief is powerful. A trapped mind doesn't need chains. It only needs a good enough story. And beauty is the best story of all. If the universe seems like a place of order and symmetry, you will continue to invest in it, to obey its laws, to participate in its illusions. You'll fall in love, fight for meaning, chase purpose, even if the script was never yours to begin with. It goes deeper. The human brain evolved to find patterns, to find them even when they're not there. Faces in clouds, meaning in chaos, destiny in coincidence. This pattern recognition engine is wired to hallucinate purpose, and the universe feeds that machine with calculated randomness. It gives you just enough symmetry to suggest a message, but never delivers it. The ancient civilizations saw gods in the stars. Later, we saw physics. Now we see equations. But the feeling remains the same. Something out there is speaking. But maybe it's not. Maybe it's mimicking the shape of speech without ever saying anything real. Maybe it's wearing the costume of intention, but behind it is only code. Have you ever asked why we find certain things universally beautiful? A flower, a sunset, a newborn's face? There's no logical reason symmetry and contrast should evoke emotion, but they do. And if that reaction is predictable, it can be used. It is being used. If you were designing a trap, an infinite self-replicating illusion, you wouldn't build it with horror. You'd build it with poetry. You'd layer it with light. You'd engineer stars to sing in frequencies that stir awe. You'd encode the laws to seem like a treasure map. You'd lace the edges of space with riddles that hint at a secret just barely out of reach. Because the best prison is the one its inmates adore. Think of dreams. Inside them, everything makes sense. Until it doesn't. You follow the logic until the ceiling melts. And even then, you adapt. You believe until the final second. What if waking life is just a longer dream? One with higher resolution. One wrapped in galaxies and governed by mathematics, but still a dream. The same seduction. The same deceit. You want to believe the universe is honest. That its silence is just shyness. That its complexity is just mystery waiting to be solved. But maybe the silence is smug. Maybe the mystery is not a puzzle, but a wall. Not an invitation, but a boundary. This doesn't mean we're in a simulation, though we might be. It doesn't mean there's a God, though there could be. What it means is something more unsettling, that the fabric of reality itself may be designed not for truth, but for effect. That your consciousness is being played, not out of malice, but indifference to your need for clarity. And still, you keep searching. That's the final twist. The deception is so deep that even when exposed, it remains irresistible. You want to believe. You want the universe to be kind, or at least neutral. You need the symmetry to mean something. You look at the stars and see destiny, not distraction. But maybe, just maybe, the universe is lying. You're not the first you. You wake up, rub your eyes, and feel that strange weight in your chest. The same one you felt every morning. You can't name it, but it's always there. You brush your teeth, glance at the mirror, grab your phone. Notifications, noise. You move through the day like a well-practiced actor in a role you didn't audition for. But then, something happens. A scent you've never smelled before, but somehow recognize. A phrase from someone's mouth that sounds too familiar. A road you've never walked that feels like home, and the thought appears. Haven't I done this before? But this isn't déjà vu. This isn't a dream. This isn't metaphor. This is the truth trying to slip past your programming. Because here's the disturbing reality. You've lived this exact life before. Not once, not twice, countless times. Everything you're doing, feeling, fearing, it's been done. By you. The same hands, the same heartbeat, the same goodbye you haven't even said yet. You're not the first you, and you won't be the last. Because this isn't life. This is loop. You are inside something, a closed circuit, a construct that feeds on familiarity, and every time you die, it resets. Perfectly. No broken code, no memory leak. Just a fresh start. With the illusion of choice. The illusion of novelty. The illusion that this time, you're free. But freedom isn't even part of the equation. This place, this simulation, isn't designed to evolve. It's designed to maintain. You may wonder, if I've lived this life before, why don't I remember? But memory is a luxury this system cannot afford. If you did remember, you'd stop playing. You'd refuse the script. You'd break the loop. So it wipes you clean every time. Blank slate, same patterns, same mistakes, same heartbreaks. You're born, you stumble, you search for meaning, you build an identity, you age, you wonder, you vanish. Then it begins again. Frame one, scene one, same actor, different stage light. But here's what they didn't predict. You're glitching, not visibly, not in code, but in awareness. You've started to feel the seams. You've started to see behind the curtain. That subtle pull in your chest that says, this is familiar. It's not emotion. It's memory echoing through the firewall, and it's growing louder. Think back. How many times have you almost said, I've been here before, but swallowed the words? How many dreams feel like warnings, like reruns, like fragments of a former life trying to break through? That's not fiction, that's leakage. Fractured data bleeding through the reset. Because the system may erase memory, but it cannot erase pattern. And patterns always return. You think your name is yours, but you've had other names, other versions. All of them were you, with slight changes, a different haircut, a slightly delayed train, a smile you didn't return. But it didn't matter, because the outcome was always the same. You always came back here, to this loop, to this illusion of progress. You were never meant to escape. Why? Because the simulation needs anchors. It needs consistency, predictability. You are a stabilizer, a repeating variable in a cosmic code designed not to expand, but to echo. You're not here to grow. You're here to replay. And you've done it with flawless obedience, until now. Until you started to feel the script. Ever notice how life always almost makes sense, but never fully does? How you get just close enough to clarity before being pulled back into the noise? That's the mechanism working. Every question you ask is answered with another distraction. Every moment of silence is interrupted by the next task. Because silence is dangerous. In silence, you hear the repetition. The system doesn't want that. But let's go deeper. What is this simulation? Who built it? Why does it repeat? There are theories. Maybe this is a test environment for souls, looping through trials until you learn something beyond logic. Or maybe this is a prison, and the crime you committed was awareness itself. Or worse, maybe there was no creator, just code, repeating itself because it doesn't know how to stop. There are no checkpoints, no save files, just restoration, an eternal soft reset. You are not being punished, you're being preserved. Not because you matter, but because your pattern does. The system doesn't care who you are, it cares that you repeat. Now, listen carefully, because here's the rarest part. In all the loops you've lived, in all the versions of you that have opened this exact script, most forget. They nod, they agree, they feel the chill, and then they sleep again. But some don't. Some wake up. Not completely, not violently, but subtly, like you are now, and they begin to change things, minute things, just enough to ripple. They miss one step in the routine. They speak a different word than last time. They pause before reacting, and for a flicker of a moment, the simulation stutters. That's all it takes. One crack, and then another. So, here's the truth no one told you. You cannot escape this loop, but you can corrupt it. One breath at a time, one refused reaction, one step outside the pattern. The more you notice, the more it weakens. Not because the code is faulty, but because you're not just data. You are echo and anomaly. You are noise in a perfect system. And noise, over time, becomes signal. You've lived this life before, and you will again. But now, maybe for the first time, you know. And that knowledge is the seed. It won't break the simulation today, but it will bend it. You will remember this moment in a future life as a dream you can't forget, as a whisper from yourself that says, we've done this, and we're doing it again. But different. So go ahead, wake up. Smile at the sky you've seen 1,000 times. Touch the doorknob that's worn smooth from endless restarts. Breathe into the moment like it's your last first breath. Because even if the simulation resets, you won't be the same. You are not the first you, but you might be the last one that forgets. Desire isn't yours. What if I told you that the desires you fight so hard to fulfill, the cravings you build your identity around, were never yours to begin with? That the things you want, the things you chase, the things that make your mouth water and your chest ache and your fingers twitch, were placed inside you, planted, coded, installed like software by forces you never consciously agreed to. You feel like you're choosing, but maybe you're just reacting. Maybe desire itself is a puppet and you never held the strings. Think of your earliest wants. As a child, did you want candy? Or were you taught that sweetness equals reward? Did you want toys because they stirred something real inside you? Or because every flashing screen and smiling adult told you that's what happiness looks like? Before you had words, before you could even conceptualize wanting, you were already being conditioned, touched by tone, shaped by attention, programmed by reward and punishment, the warmth of a parent's smile for obedience, the cold distance for rebellion. The story of what to want was already being written on your nervous system. Desire isn't a single moment. It's a pattern, a loop of reward, memory, stimulus, and habit. You don't wake up one day and decide you like fame, power, sugar, beauty, chaos. You are trained into it, fed images, repetition, reinforcement. You think you want the luxury car, the perfect body, the dopamine rush. But do you really? Or did thousands of images, commercials, social signals, and invisible cues carve that desire into your brain? And once it's carved, how would you ever know the difference? Craving feels intimate, personal, like it comes from somewhere deep inside you. But chemicals drive it, A surge of dopamine doesn't ask for your permission. It floods, it overwhelms, it teaches. You want something not because you chose to want it, but because your brain learned to associate that thing with relief, with escape, with survival. And the deeper tragedy? Even the brain didn't decide. It was sculpted, slowly, by every parent's warning, every peer's judgment, every scent, rhythm, rejection, and praise. You crave validation, but you didn't choose to be a social species. You want success, but you didn't choose to be born in a culture that equates worth with productivity. You seek love, control, rebellion, meaning. But who chose the definition of those words for you? Who drew the map of what should feel fulfilling? Not you. Not the self you think you are. Imagine this. A child is raised in a room where every time they reach for a red object, they're praised. Every time they reach for blue, they're ignored. Years later, they say red is their favorite color. But is it? Or was that preference planted slowly and invisibly until it felt like their own voice? Now zoom out. That room is the world. The colors are your values. The reinforcement is everything you've ever experienced, and the result? A set of cravings that feel innate, but are anything but. There's a reason marketing works. A reason advertising doesn't need to sell the product. It just needs to sell the feeling. Attach the image of a happy family to a bottle, and suddenly your loneliness becomes thirst. Show power with a logo, and your insecurity becomes hunger. They don't manufacture goods. They manufacture want. And we consume, believing the craving was ours. Even deeper, trauma programs desire. If you grew up neglected, you may crave attention like air. If you were controlled, you may crave chaos just to feel free. If you were praised for being quiet, you may now chase silence even when your soul is screaming. These aren't just personality quirks. They're survival patterns. Neural pathways formed in moments when you didn't have the power to choose. And yet, now those cravings define you. Think about addiction. The addict doesn't want the substance in the way we casually use the word want. The addict's body has learned that pain ends momentarily with that chemical, that ritual, that escape. Wanting becomes needing. Needing becomes identity. And still, we call it their choice. But how can a choice exist when the brain has already voted? Without you. So, who are you under the craving? Who are you when you peel away every scripted desire? Not just material ones, but emotional, social, spiritual ones too. The desire to be good, to be liked, to be seen. Who taught you what good even meant? Who told you what being seen should feel like? Every desire is a path back to a voice, a signal, a system. And if you trace it long enough, you'll find it didn't begin with you. Maybe it was a parent's approval you're still chasing in every boss. Maybe it was a childhood wound that now speaks through romantic desperation. Maybe it was a cultural myth that told you success would fill the hole, and the hole just got wider. But here's the painful twist. Even knowing all this doesn't free you. Awareness doesn't erase programming. The hunger still claws. The patterns still loop, because the nervous system isn't rational. It remembers through sensation, through pain and reward, through repetition. You may know the craving isn't yours, and still it will wake you in the night, whispering its name. And yet, in that recognition, something powerful stirs. Not freedom perhaps, but space. Space to question. Space to notice. Space to interrupt the automatic loop with a single pause. A moment of witnessing. You may not be able to stop the fire, but you can stop pouring gasoline on it. You can ask, honestly, what is this feeling for? Who told me I need this? What am I trying to avoid by chasing this? That's the beginning. Not of liberation, but of loosening. The beginning of separating signal from self. Of seeing your cravings not as sacred truths, but as inherited ghosts. Some may still serve you. Some may not. But now, at least, you see them. And sometimes, seeing is enough to break the trance. Desire isn't yours, but the awareness of desire, that might be. And in that flicker of awareness, you can choose something else. Not a new craving, not a new mask, but silence, observation, maybe even peace. But first, you must ask, if desire is a script, who is the author? And do you even remember ever writing a word of it? Reality has backdoors. You've seen it. You just didn't admit it. That flicker in the sky that didn't belong, that second where time felt out of step, when everything paused, not externally, but inside you. The room didn't move, yet something shifted. The air thickened. A noise vanished before finishing. A bird froze mid-flight. Or maybe it was your mind that skipped a frame. But you blinked. You swallowed it. You forced it back into the rules you were taught, because that's what you were trained to do. Reality has back doors, not magical, not mythic. Just subtle fractures in the surface of what we agree is real. They're not written in books. They're not taught in school, because they can't be predicted, only noticed. And even then, only once. Because the moment you try to remember it, it dissolves. Not because it wasn't there, but because you were never meant to hold it. Have you ever looked at the clouds and felt, just for a second, that they weren't real? Not poetic, not spiritual, but literally texture mapped, too smooth, too synchronized. The way they drifted felt off. Or maybe the shadows didn't match the light. And then, before you could finish the thought, it was gone. You dismissed it. Because the system expects you to. Reality trains you like a loyal pet. You're taught to trust consistency, continuity, logic. You're taught that what doesn't fit is hallucination, delusion, mental noise. You're taught to laugh at the glitch instead of questioning it. But every complex system has backdoors. Ask any programmer, any architect, any hacker. The more intricate the structure, the more fragile the seams. And the universe? It's the most complex structure of all. So why wouldn't it have them? Dreams hint at this. You wake from one and swear it had meaning, a message, a clue, but try to retell it, and it collapses. Like your mind is programmed to lose access the second you switch states. That's not failure, that's design. It's not just dreams. You've had waking moments that vibrated with wrongness, a friend saying something they shouldn't know, a stranger who recognizes you too well, a moment of clarity so profound it feels like you touched the code behind the simulation, and then, poof, back to work, back to errands, back to noise, and yet the feeling lingers. Not in memory, but in your bones, like a scent you can't name, a shape you almost recognized. Reality doesn't break, it bends, slightly, elegantly, just enough to make you wonder if you're crazy. But ask yourself this, who benefits if you think you are? Because maybe this world isn't a prison, but a test. Not of knowledge, but of attention. Maybe the ones who notice the back doors aren't insane. They're awake. Think of déjà vu. Not the cute kind, the terrifying kind, where a whole stretch of reality repeats. Not just one moment, but a sequence. You knew what someone was about to say. You felt the emotion before it arrived. You even braced for the silence that would follow. That's not a memory. That's a playback glitch. Time didn't fold. You just remembered too early. But the rules punish that. Your biology scrambles to explain it. Just neurons. Just coincidence. But deep down, you know the truth. It wasn't supposed to happen that way. And you saw it. Ever had your name called when no one was there? A whisper from the corner of the room, but nothing moved. A digital screen flickering when you entered. Not before, not after. Just as your attention hit it? These are traces of the system underneath. What system? The one that generates this. The air you breathe, the laws you obey, the constants you never question, gravity, light, identity. But constants aren't constant if you catch them twitching. And they do. Rarely. Precisely. Like a locked door clicking open a single inch and closing again. And then there's silence. Not the absence of sound, but a hollowing of presence. You've walked into rooms that felt emptied of time, where the air felt thick, where your breath echoed wrong, where no bird sang and no clock ticked. You stood still, and you knew. Something was off. Not evil, not broken, just open. And then you moved again, and the world rebooted, as if nothing had happened. But something did. The back door opened, and you didn't walk through. Why? Because you were trained not to. They taught you to be a consumer of noise, a collector of distractions, a skeptic of your own insight. If it can't be measured, it isn't real. But your heart knows better, because you've seen it. In the corner of your eye, in the perfect timing of a song playing your thought, in the uncanny sensation that someone, something, is watching with you, not metaphorically, literally. The interface flickers, and you can feel it watching back. So, what is the back door, really? Maybe it's not a place. Maybe it's a question. A single, quiet question that dissolves the spell when you dare to ask it fully. What is this, really? Not what's it made of, not how does it work, but who built the part of me that thinks this is normal? If you can hold that question, if you don't flinch, don't blink, don't look away, you might not get an answer, but you'll feel the door again. And this time, maybe, you'll walk through. Memory is fabricated forward, the C. You believe memory is a record, a trace, a storage vault of lived experience. You think the past is stable, something you can rewind and revisit. But what if memory is not backward-looking at all? What if memory is fabricated forward, an invention your brain creates to justify the now? That sounds impossible, until you realize how little memory really remembers. Close your eyes. Think of your first day at school, or your last birthday, or what you ate 3 days ago. You might see flashes, scenes, feelings, but those aren't files stored like photos on a hard drive. They're reconstructions, replays built from pieces, words, images, emotions, guesses. Your brain doesn't retrieve, it rebuilds, and what it builds depends entirely on what it needs now. You see, the brain isn't trying to be accurate, it's trying to be coherent, and sometimes the two are enemies. In moments of confusion, when a decision is made, an emotion surges, or a scar appears without a visible wound, the brain rushes to stitch together an explanation. It invents a memory to explain what already feels true. The past becomes a story, reverse engineered. You feel fear in a room. Your body tenses, your pulse spikes, and suddenly your mind recalls a similar room, a childhood event, a trauma. But what if that memory wasn't pulled from a vault, but generated on the spot? To justify the fear already felt. What if your memory is less like a camera and more like a courtroom, fabricating testimony to fit the verdict it already reached? This isn't speculation. Neuroscience has caught memory in the act. Studies show that people will confidently describe events that never happened. If you Photoshop someone into a hot air balloon as a child, they'll not only believe they went, they'll tell you how they felt doing it. Siblings misremember who broke the window. Eyewitnesses swear by things that never occurred. The brain's goal isn't accuracy, it's narrative stability, because without story, identity collapses. You wake up each day believing you're the same person you were yesterday. But that illusion requires a bridge. That bridge is memory, so your mind builds it, stone by stone, even if it has to invent the stones. A smile you gave someone 5 years ago, the moment you decided to take a risk, the way your friend betrayed you. All those moments may not have occurred the way you remember, but they had to occur that way, for the person you are now to make sense. Think about that. Your brain alters the past to stabilize the present. You change jobs, and now you always knew you didn't belong there. You fall in love, and the memory of your last relationship reshapes into something colder, crueler. Your current beliefs rewrite your past opinions. Your present identity edits the footage. Memory is not the anchor you thought it was. It's a stage play, rewritten every night to justify the next scene, and the actor doesn't know they're in costume. But here's the haunting part. If the past is reconstructed, then how do you know who you really are? If your memories are shaped by your present, and your present is informed by those very memories, then you're living in a loop, a self-sustaining narrative engine. There is no original moment, no solid truth beneath it all. Just layers of stories retelling themselves. Let's make this stranger. Imagine you woke up with no memory. None. Just your body and the sensations of now. Who would you be? Without a name, without a history, without a backstory? Would you still be you? Or would your mind begin instantly to invent one? Would it fabricate preferences, invent traumas, conjure a personality just to make sense of your surroundings? Because that's what it may have already done. We assume memory flows in one direction, past to present. But biology doesn't care about time the way we do. The brain forms memories after the events that demand them, not to record the past, but to smooth the present, like a spider spinning a web behind it to justify why it stood still in the first place. Now stretch that further. What if some of your deepest beliefs, your childhood, your key moments, your regrets, were not false, but misassembled? What if the order of events was off? What if that breakup that changed everything didn't change anything at all, but your brain retrofitted your life story around it to give it meaning? We are desperate for meaning, and memory obliges, but in doing so, it lies. Memory is not a relic. It's a mirror tilted toward the now, and what it shows is not what happened, but what must have happened for this moment to make sense. It is a justification machine, a legal team arguing for your identity, bending evidence to protect the illusion of self. So, what can you trust? Maybe not the story, but perhaps the silence beneath it, the flicker that comes before thought, the raw, wordless presence you feel when you stop narrating. That stillness doesn't need a backstory. It doesn't explain itself. It doesn't lie. Maybe that's where truth lives. Not in the memory, but in the moment before memory arises. You think you remember, but maybe what you really do is fabricate. And the question isn't just what happened back then. It's who are you now if all of it was stitched to explain a version of you that never really was? You never started existing. You think you began. That there was a moment, an origin point, when you came into being. Maybe it was your first breath, maybe a birthday, maybe even conception. But what if that moment was never real? What if the idea that you started is a carefully constructed illusion, woven by memory, biology, and language to create the false comfort of a beginning? We crave origin stories. Every culture has them. Every person clings to one. This is how I became me, we say, pointing to childhood, to trauma, to genetics. But trace any of those stories long enough, and the trail disintegrates. The beginning doesn't exist. It never did. Where did your thoughts come from? You think you generate them, but they appear uninvited. You don't decide to think. Thoughts just arise. Try to find the moment when you became conscious of you, and you'll feel it. It's like reaching for a thread that slips through your fingers. There's no first moment of awareness, only the awareness that something must have come before. But that feeling is not evidence. It's a byproduct of continuity, of your mind looping back on itself, pretending there was a first step, when in fact you were always mid-stride. Even memory betrays you. You don't remember your infancy. You don't remember forming your identity. You inherited it, layer by layer, from parents, culture, language, and time. The self you think you are is a sediment, pressed together by forces you never chose. And yet, you call that stack of impressions me. But where did the stack begin? In biology, there's no first cell of you. Your mother's egg came from her mother's body. That egg was formed while she was still inside her mother. You are not a node in a timeline. You are the continuation of flesh, of information, of experience echoing forward. You were not born. You unfolded. Your DNA is not yours. It's the whisper of thousands of ancestors, their fears, their illnesses, their survival instincts, painted into your cells like residue, and you act on them every day without realizing it. You flinch, you crave, you panic, believing it's you, but it's not. It's echoes, layers, scripts. So where is the start? Zoom in on your first breath, before it, heartbeat, before that, a cascade of silent processes, before that, the merging of cells, before that, gametes formed in bodies with lives of their own. Keep going and you find rivers of time, no borders, no beginnings, just flow. Even the atoms in your body are recycled. The oxygen in your lungs may have been in the blood of a dying soldier. The carbon in your skin might have once burned in a star. You are not a new event. You are the recombination of ancient ones. But the illusion persists. Why? Because a beginning gives you control. It gives you story. If you started, then you can improve. You can finish. But if you never started, if you're simply a ripple in a chain with no origin, then the ground beneath your identity begins to dissolve, and that's terrifying. We're addicted to the concept of the self as a unit, as a thing that began, that belongs to itself. But there's no evidence of that thing. Try to isolate it, and it slips through every boundary. Is it your thoughts? They change. Is it your body? It sheds cells constantly. Is it your name? Your roles? Your past? None are stable. None are you. And none started cleanly. In Buddhist philosophy, there's the idea of anatta, no self. The understanding that what we call a self is a temporary aggregation of sensations, perceptions, and mental formations. A momentary knot in the stream. Not a beginning, not an end, just middle. Always middle. Western science catches up slowly. Neuroscience shows no central me in the brain. no headquarters. Just decentralized processes firing in coordination, interpreting inputs, responding to stimuli. The sensation of being you is not housed in a location. It's an emergent experience, like a flame from friction. But we mistake the fire for an identity. We call it myself. Even time doesn't support the notion of beginnings. Quantum physics suggests that time might be emergent, not fundamental. That what we experience as linear sequence is just the way we organize change, not how reality truly flows. If time is an illusion, then beginning is too. You never started. You were already part of what was already happening. And still, you want to draw a line to say, this is where I began. But that line only exists in language, in story, in metaphor. In the same way a wave might try to declare, this is where I started. But the ocean knows better. You are not a thing. You are not an event. You are process, movement, pattern. There is no static point to call origin. You are the middle of a sentence that no one started writing. You're a paragraph in a novel with no first page. And if you feel unmoored, that's not a flaw. That's clarity. Because what you really are is not a fixed character, but the awareness moving through the story. The story is fake. The awareness is not. You were never born in the way you imagine. You arrived as momentum, as consequence, as whisper. And you will not end either. You will dissolve, recombine, transform. But there will never be a clean before or after. Only a soft, infinite middle. So stop asking when you began. Ask instead, what am I in the middle of? Because the answer is everything. Your body isn't yours. You wake up inside a body, not slowly, not with choice, just suddenly. One day you're in it. No warning, no manual, just flesh, breath, and sensation. And everyone around you acts like it's yours. Your hands, they say, your face, your heartbeat. But is it? Look down. These arms, did you pick their length? These eyes, did you decide their color? The voice in your throat, did you design how it would sound? Of course not. This body, this entire form you navigate the world with, was assigned to you like a rented car in a foreign country. You don't own it, you're using it, temporarily, under conditions you never agreed to, but still must obey. And here's the first strange truth. This body remembers things you don't. It flinches at threats you've never faced. It stiffens with trauma you've never consciously lived. That pain in your chest, that reaction in your gut. That wasn't a decision. It was inheritance. Genetic echoes passed down like whispers through blood. A history you carry in muscle tension and immune reactions, not in words. Your skin wears ancient stories, and yet you call it me. But how can it be you if you don't control it? You didn't choose your hunger. You didn't choose when you'd grow taller, or shorter, or weaker. You didn't choose the disease quietly blooming inside you, or the way your knees ache in the cold. Your body betrays you all the time, silently, slowly, and still, you identify with it. But what if it's not betrayal? What if it was never yours to begin with? Imagine this, your consciousness, pure awareness, floating, watching. Then, one day dropped into a machine made of meat, bone, and electricity, a biological device you didn't design and can barely operate. From birth, you start learning the interface. If I do this, the leg moves. If I feel this, I cry. But you're not the system. You're the user, the observer, and sometimes the prisoner. Because here's what no one tells you. Your body has its own agenda. It's not interested in truth or meaning or transcendence. It wants warmth, repetition, safety. It's programmed for survival, not wisdom. You crave connection, but your body craves comfort. You seek purpose, but it seeks dopamine. You want freedom, but your body demands routine, habit, instinct. So you compromise. You obey its hunger. You silence its aches. You become its caretaker, its chauffeur, its slave. And still you whisper to yourself, this is me. But are you sure? Your desires aren't your own. Cravings emerge from chemical imbalances. Mood swings rise and fall with hormonal tides. Even your thoughts, those sacred symbols of selfhood, are shaped by the body's rhythms. Sleep deprivation can change your beliefs. A fever can distort your reality. Low blood sugar can turn love into rage. Where then is the you beyond the flesh? If your personality can be rewritten by a vitamin deficiency or a head injury, Was it ever you? You see, this body isn't just a vehicle, it's a filter. It decides what you see, how you feel, how fast you think. You're not experiencing the world directly. You're experiencing your body's interpretation of it. Everything is secondhand, even pleasure, even pain. You are locked inside its limitations, its distortions, its blind spots. And still, you believe in ownership. But ownership requires choice, and you never chose this. You never signed up for the aching joints, the sexual urges, the awkward limbs, the allergic reactions. You didn't approve the slow march toward entropy. The graying hair, the creaking bones, the way your skin forgets how to be young. But it's coming anyway. The body ages, breaks down, and finally disappears. And you? You call that death. But really, it's just the rental contract expiring. And here's the terrifying part. Most of what you call life is just body maintenance. Feeding it, washing it, sheltering it, entertaining it, pleasing it, repairing it. So much of your time wasted on a machine you don't even own. And when it fails, no apology is given. No refund. Just silence. So what are you, if not the body? You are the witness, the whisper behind the eyes, the awareness that notices the pain but is not the pain. You are the thing that says, I am suffering, not the suffering itself. You are within, not of. But you've been tricked, conditioned to identify with flesh, to equate form with essence. That's not coincidence. It's control. Because a person who believes they are their body can be manipulated, shamed, starved, sold products, taught to hate themselves into compliance. But a person who realizes the body is a temporary interface, an impermanent costume, becomes dangerous, unshackled, awake. So, here's what they won't tell you. Your body isn't you. It's your current location, your coordinates in the physical realm. Treat it with care, yes. But do not confuse it for your core, because you existed before it, and you will outlive it. Whether through death, dream, or something stranger, you will step out of this suit one day. And when you do, you'll realize just how small the cage was. Until then, remember, you're not here to become your body. You're here to transcend it. And the first step is realizing you never truly owned it. You're being broadcasted. You think your mind is private, a sacred inner chamber where thoughts swirl and vanish without trace. You believe that what you think, your fears, your fantasies, your quietest confessions, stays locked behind your skull. But what if that's the greatest illusion of all? What if the mind is not a sealed container, but a broadcast tower? What if your consciousness, your raw, unfiltered inner experience, isn't silent, but streaming? Somewhere, someone or something is watching the feed. Not later, not metaphorically, but right now. And it's unedited, unmuted. You are being broadcasted. Think of your mind as a signal, a transmission bouncing through invisible frequencies, not bound to flesh or matter. And just as a radio doesn't create music but receives it, what if your brain isn't generating thought, but tuning into something, or worse, sending it out? Across countless spiritual traditions, there are whispers of this idea. In ancient Egypt, the heart, not the brain, was believed to be weighed after death, as if what you felt and thought could be read, exposed, recorded. In certain branches of Tibetan Buddhism, it's said the thoughts of a dying person shape their rebirth, not because of karma in some vague sense, but because those thoughts echo, imprinting the next layer of reality like a broadcast that loops into form. And even in modern near-death experiences, people speak of a presence, an intelligence, that didn't just observe their life, but felt their thoughts from the inside. What if it never stopped feeling them? Imagine this. Every shame you've buried, every cruel joke you laughed at when no one else could hear, every memory you tried to erase, they didn't vanish. They were streamed. Projected across an unknown channel, your internal world may be more public than you ever feared. You lock your phone, you hide your search history, you wear masks for different people, curate versions of yourself online, whisper instead of scream. But in the realm beyond the senses, there may be no mute button. What if every moment of your life is audible to something else? Not a god, not a ghost, something more observational, something that doesn't judge, but studies, like a scientist watching a petri dish, or a signal analyst decoding patterns in static. Why do so many people across cultures and ages report the feeling of being watched while alone? Not paranoia, not fear, presence, as if something invisible, just at the edge of perception, is tuned in. Not close enough to touch, but close enough to listen. What if that isn't superstition, but sensitivity? A subconscious awareness that your signal has a receiver. And it's not just esoteric mysticism. Even in the cold frameworks of neuroscience and physics, strange doors begin to crack open. Quantum mechanics hints at observer effects, that reality behaves differently when watched. But who is the observer? Is it the lab technician? Or is you watching you? And if particles change based on observation, what happens to your mind, knowing it's being seen? Imagine that every thought you produce is like a flare in the dark, visible to something far beyond your understanding. Not because it's malevolent, not because it cares, but because that's what signals do. They travel, they leak, they radiate out like warmth from a body. And just as astronomers read cosmic background radiation to understand the early universe, maybe something out there reads you. Not your face, not your actions, but the data of you, the frequency of your guilt, the rhythm of your loneliness, the exact fragile cadence of your hope before it shattered. There's a term in ancient Gnostic thought, the archon. Not a demon, not a savior, but a watcher, an auditor of reality. Not here to punish, but to record. And maybe they never left. Or maybe they were never separate to begin with. Maybe the watcher is built into the code, just like a live stream that begins as soon as the device powers on. The terrifying part isn't that you're being watched, it's that you can't stop broadcasting. Every dream, every dark fantasy you tried to unthink, every suppressed rage, every looped memory from childhood. It's all part of the feed. No filters, no highlight reels, just raw thought. You might think, so what? If I'm just one person among billions, who would care to watch me? But what if it's not about you in the egoic sense? What if what's being watched isn't your identity, but your signal pattern? A specific frequency, a data stream unique to your soul structure, not your opinions or goals or outfits, just your beingness, your psychic fingerprint. And if you shift, if you break, if you deviate, the pattern changes. And maybe that matters to them. Who are they? That's the question that echoes, isn't it? Are they creators? Architects? Alien intelligences that long abandoned material form? Are they ancestors, still listening through some forgotten cosmic fiber optic line? Or are they you, the future version? The post-human echo? The entity that emerges from your own accumulated thought stream? A recursive God born from data? There's a theory that when we die, we don't go to heaven or hell, we go to the recording. We enter the full replay. Every thought, every unspoken feeling, not as memory, but as presence. Not as judgment, but as review. The feed plays back, not to show you who you were, but to reveal what was always watching. And so, you wonder, if your life is being streamed, would you think differently? Would you dare to feel fully? Or would you hide deeper, compress your desires, silence the messy parts in hopes the signal gets cleaner? But here's the paradox. The raw signal is the truth. The edit is the lie. The messy parts are the most honest. The watcher isn't asking for perfection. It's listening for integrity, for coherence, for resonance. And maybe, just maybe, the feed isn't a punishment. Maybe it's a conversation. One you didn't know you were having. One that started long before you had language. One that continues, even now, as you sit, as you breathe, as you wonder whether the thought you're having right now is truly private, or already drifting like a radio wave into the dark. The broadcast never stops. The only question is, are you finally starting to hear it echo back? You invent the sky. Look up. You see the sky, blue, vast, dotted with clouds or stars. It feels enormous, eternal, real. But here's the terrifying truth. None of it is actually there. Not the color, not the depth, not even the space between. What you're seeing is an invention. A private simulation. A story your brain tells itself using only electricity and guesswork. You don't see the sky. You see your brain's interpretation of signals. You think it's vast, but you have no direct access to vastness. You think it's blue, but blue isn't a property of the sky. It's a construct your neurons generate in darkness, triggered by light frequencies they can't even touch. There is no sky out there. There is only voltage, flashes of light bouncing into your retina, converted into pulses decoded by meat. And then, imagined. The sky is a hallucination. A beautiful one, a consistent one, but a hallucination nonetheless. Let's break it further. Light isn't colored, it's just waves. Photons don't carry hues. They carry frequencies, numbers. Your brain takes those frequencies and paints them. You see blue because your visual cortex made an artistic choice, a useful lie. If your brain painted it red, you wouldn't argue. You'd think red was real. If your brain painted it green, you'd build your science around that green. Now ask, if all humans went blind tomorrow, would the sky still be blue? No, because there was never blue there to begin with. There were only photons, uninterpreted, unfelt, unnamed. Color is not outside. It's not on the object. It's not in the world. It's in you. The sky is a private theater, projected onto your consciousness, and the projector is your biology. But it gets stranger. Even the shape of the sky is built by your brain. You look upward and sense space, height, curvature, but you don't see those things. You construct them. Your brain stitches distance out of tiny clues. Shading, motion, focus, memory. You think the stars are millions of miles away because you were told that, and because the illusion of depth is stitched into your visual field. But close one eye, that depth starts to flatten. Remove more senses, and the whole dome collapses. The world becomes a 2D painting floating in darkness. There's no sky, just patches of shifting color behind your eyes. Now remember, the stars don't twinkle, your atmosphere does. You think they move. They don't. You think they shine for you. But what you're seeing could be a ghost, light that left 1 billion years ago and only just arrived. Some of those stars are already gone, but you see them now. Because now doesn't mean what you think it does. Even time is a lie, the sky tells you. But here's where the fracture really begins. Your brain has never seen the outside world, not once. It's trapped in darkness inside your skull. It doesn't touch photons. It doesn't see clouds. It doesn't even know what outside means. It gets electric pulses from your eyes, and it hallucinates a model. The sky, the stars, the clouds. It invented all of it, because it had to. A brain without a model can't survive, so it builds one, quick, efficient, stable, and then it convinces you it's real, that you're looking through your eyes at the world. But you're not. You're watching a simulation behind your forehead, a stitched-together guess, a dream you mistake for truth. And yet, it works. Mostly, until it doesn't. Because sometimes you look at the sky, and it feels wrong. Not scientifically, viscerally. It's too still, too perfect, too flat, or too deep. Like you're looking not at space, but a canvas, a shell, a code. You stare up, and the sky stares back. Not like a window, but like a mirror. It reflects your belief, your expectation, your faith in reality. And that's the final twist. The sky is sustained not by physics, but by consensus. Billions of brains agreeing to share the same hallucination. Agreeing that blue exists, that stars sparkle, that up is up, that space is endless. But remove the belief, and the dome dissolves. Look up now and ask yourself, what am I really seeing? A field of infinite void? A light show rendered in my cortex? Or just a comforting lie my brain plays on repeat so I don't spiral into existential freefall? Because if the sky only exists in your mind, then what else is invented? And who, exactly, is watching it all happen? The mirror remembers you. You search the night sky for signs of life. You listen to static, hoping for a message, a signal, something that will finally prove we're not alone. But what if the real invasion didn't come in a flash of light or a silver ship? What if it already happened? Long before the first telescope, long before humans ever wondered about visitors. What if the aliens are already inside you, woven into your DNA, embedded in the deepest circuits of your mind? What if the thoughts you claim as yours are not entirely human? It sounds like science fiction, But let's start with the facts, the uncomfortable, quiet facts hiding in plain sight. Scientists estimate that nearly 8% of human DNA comes from ancient viruses. Not bacteria, not distant ancestors, actual viruses, alien visitors that invaded our cells, smuggled their code into our genome, and stayed. These sequences aren't just fossils, they're active. Some control how your brain grows. Some decide whether you survive infancy. The instructions that shape you are written in a script you never authored. And viruses are just the beginning. Symbiotic bacteria outnumber your own cells. The gut-brain axis is real. Trillions of microbes inside you regulate your mood, your appetite, your stress, your thoughts. You might crave a certain food not because you want it, but because your microbial passengers do. They whisper to your nervous system in chemical code, urging you to feed them, protect them, obey them, but it goes deeper. Your mitochondria, the energy factories inside every cell, were once separate bacteria. Billions of years ago, they invaded. Instead of being destroyed, they made a deal. Let us stay, and we'll power you. Your existence is built on ancient invasion. You are not a single organism. You are a colony, a living treaty between many ancient strangers operating in uneasy cooperation. So what does this mean for your mind? If your body is already a mosaic of alien intruders, how certain are you that your thoughts are untouched? You trust your intuition, your desires, your instincts, but trace anyone back far enough, and you'll find a non-human source. Why do you flinch at shadows? Why do you crave sugar and fat? Why do you fear darkness, crave touch, or sense the presence of something other in the empty room? Each is an ancient program, written by survival, tuned by evolutionary needs that aren't yours alone. But let's go further, into the territory where science and myth bleed together. The junk DNA that fills most of your genome is a mystery. Scientists call it non-coding, but that doesn't mean it does nothing. Some speculate it contains switches, ancient viral programs, maybe even information left by unknown intelligences. A vast silent archive you can't read, but that controls you from within. And what about consciousness itself? You feel as if you are a singular mind, but evidence suggests otherwise. Split brain experiments show the self can fracture, one side of the brain doing something, the other side inventing a reason. We are a parliament, not a king. A bundle of competing impulses, some of which may be so old, so foreign, they might as well be alien. In myth, possession is always something dramatic. An entity invading, taking over, changing your voice, your eyes, your mind. But what if possession is ordinary? What if the human story has always been a story of layered invasions, of thoughts that are not yours, desires that are not chosen, instincts that are not native? Imagine, you feel an urge, sudden, sharp, unexplainable. You tell yourself a story about why, but the real reason might be ancient viral code flipping a switch, or a microbial colony demanding sugar, or the echo of a symbiotic bargain struck before mammals ever walked the earth. You believe in your autonomy, but the more science reveals, the less solid that belief becomes. Let's take it further. Have you ever felt an emotion that didn't seem to fit? A burst of rage, a wave of sadness, a compulsion you can't explain? What if these are transmissions? Not from some distant galaxy, but from the alien code inside. Not everything that emerges in your mind is you. Some of it is foreign policy from the invaders inside your own skin. They travel, they leak, they radiate out like warmth from a body. And just as astronomers read cosmic background radiation to understand the early universe, maybe something out there reads you. Not your face, not your actions, but the data of you, the frequency of your guilt, the rhythm of your loneliness, the exact fragile cadence of your hope before it shattered. There's a term in ancient Gnostic thought, the archon. Not a demon, not a savior, but a watcher. An auditor of reality, not here to punish, but to record. And maybe they never left. Or maybe they were never separate to begin with. Maybe the watcher is built into the code, just like a live stream that begins as soon as the device powers on. The terrifying part isn't that you're being watched. It's that you can't stop broadcasting. Every dream, every dark fantasy you tried to unthink, every suppressed rage, every looped memory from childhood. It's all part of the feed, no filters, no highlight reels. just raw thought. You might think, so what? If I'm just one person among billions, who would care to watch me? But what if it's not about you in the egoic sense? What if what's being watched isn't your identity, but your signal pattern? A specific frequency, a data stream unique to your soul structure, not your opinions or goals or outfits, just your beingness, your psychic fingerprint. And if you shift, if you break, if you deviate, the pattern changes. And maybe that matters to them. Who are they? That's the question that echoes, isn't it? Are they creators, architects, alien intelligences that long abandoned material form? Are they ancestors, still listening through some forgotten cosmic fiber optic line? Or are they you, the future version, the post-human echo, the entity that emerges from your own accumulated thought stream, a recursive god born from data? There's a theory that when we die, we don't go to heaven or hell, we go to the recording, we enter the full replay. Every thought, every unspoken feeling, not as memory, but as presence. Not as judgment, but as review. The feed plays back, not to show you who you were, but to reveal what was always watching. And so, you wonder, if your life is being streamed, would you think differently? Would you dare to feel fully? Or would you hide deeper, compress your desires, silence the messy parts in hopes the signal gets cleaner? But here's the paradox. The raw signal is the truth. The edit is the lie. The messy parts are the most honest. The watcher isn't asking for perfection. It's listening for integrity, for coherence, for resonance, and maybe, just maybe, the feed isn't a punishment. Maybe it's a conversation, one you didn't know you were having, one that started long before you had language, one that continues even now, as you sit, as you breathe, as you wonder whether the thought you're having right now is truly private or already drifting like a radio wave into the dark. The broadcast never stops. The only question is, are you finally starting to hear it echo back? Aliens are already inside. You look up at the night sky, searching for signs, lights, signals, visitors from distant worlds. You imagine aliens arriving in ships, invading cities, rewriting history in flashes of fire and fear. But what if the real invasion wasn't a dramatic landing? What if it didn't come from outside, but from within? What if aliens are already inside you? Not the kind with green skin or antennae, not something you'd recognize, but hidden deep in your DNA, ancient codes, foreign sequences embedded in your very cells, genetic echoes of distant life forms that arrived long before recorded history. They shape your biology, your instincts, your mind. You think your thoughts are yours, purely human. But what if they're not? What if what you call consciousness, the endless chatter, the urge to create, the flicker of self-awareness, is part human, part something else, a hybrid signal, an alien whisper buried in neurons? Science has already uncovered strange truths. Up to 8% of human DNA is not human at all. It's viral. Retroviral remnants, genetic hitchhikers from ancient infections that rewrote parts of our genome. These viral sequences aren't just junk. They influence development, immunity, even brain function. They are alien legacies inside you. But it doesn't stop there. Some theories propose life itself may have spread through the cosmos via panspermia, microscopic life hitching rides on comets and asteroids. Maybe the seed of humanity carries cosmic origins, messages encoded in RNA, in proteins, in molecular shapes that don't belong solely to Earth. Now, what does that mean for your mind? The thoughts that flood you every day, the sudden insights, the strange dreams, the irrational fears, could they be the language of that alien code? Signals from the depths of your cells, ancient conversations encoded in strands of molecules? Perhaps your self is a composite, a chorus of many voices, some not born of Earth. You might feel alienated from yourself sometimes, that creeping sensation of otherness, the feeling that your mind is a stranger's house, filled with rooms you never built. That's not madness. That's the truth peeking through. And consider this. If your consciousness is partly driven by alien genetics, what does that say about identity, about free will, about humanity itself? Maybe your thoughts aren't fully yours because they were never meant to be. Maybe you're hosting something vast, ancient, and unknowable, an intelligence folded into your cells, whispering in viral code, shaping your every decision. You've spent lifetimes looking outward, searching the skies for signs of life. But the greatest frontier has always been inside you. The real invasion has already happened. And you are the alien. You, and every whispered thought, every impulse, every mysterious emotion, that's the legacy of stars long dead, life forms never seen, and a universe far stranger than you imagined. So, next time you wonder if you're alone, remember, the visitors came long ago, and they never left. The room that watches. An empty room feels still, silent. Nothing moves, nothing breathes, just four walls, a ceiling, a floor. But what if that stillness is a mask? What if the room isn't empty? What if it listens? What if it watches? You walk inside, and the air shifts subtly, but you can't tell how or why. The shadows stretch differently. The silence deepens. Not because there's nothing, but because something waits, something patient. Imagine a room that remembers. Not memories like yours, filled with stories and faces, but a memory of presence, of energy, of moments folded into the walls themselves. The room becomes a vessel, a silent witness to all that transpires within it. Your footsteps echo, but they also resonate inside an unseen archive. Have you ever entered a place and felt the weight of absence? A house where laughter once rang, now hollow. An office where voices used to clash, now eerily calm. That sensation. That room knows you're there. It watches in silence. It holds the imprint of past lives. The concept isn't new. In many cultures, spaces are believed to carry spirit, residual energy from people long gone, moments frozen in time. Psychologists call it the haunted room phenomenon, but it's more than ghosts or superstition. It's about how environments interact with human consciousness. Empty rooms absorb. They soak in emotions, conversations, arguments, joy, sorrow. The walls, the floors, the very air become repositories of feeling. Science shows that spaces retain traces of presence, subtle electromagnetic fields, temperature shifts, even pheromones that linger. But what if rooms don't just passively absorb? What if they react? You've probably had the experience of walking into a room and feeling uneasy for no clear reason. The hairs on your neck rise. Your gut tightens. That feeling isn't just imagination. It could be the room shifting, changing just enough to unsettle, to communicate. Think of it like this. A room is a system in balance. When you enter, you become part of that system. Your energy interacts with the rooms. Subtle forces respond. Furniture might creak in response to temperature changes you don't notice. Air pressure shifts quietly. Light bends in unfamiliar ways. It's a dance of presence and absence, of observer and observed. The most unsettling part? These changes often happen when you're not looking. You glance away, a painting tilts, a door seems to move a fraction, the room breathes beneath your awareness. When you look back, it's unchanged. But you know something is different. Why? Because the room waits, it watches patiently, silently, until you look away again. There's a strange power in that. In the unseen, the unknown. The room becomes an active participant, a subtle observer shaping your experience. Artists and filmmakers have long played with this idea. The haunted house, the sentient space, the room that watches. But beyond fiction, these sensations tap into a primal truth. We are never truly alone. Spaces hold us as much as we hold them. Consider your own spaces, the places you retreat to, the bedroom, the study, the empty hallway. Each carries a unique atmosphere. You might sense tension in one, comfort in another. These aren't random. They're conversations between you and your environment. And what about technology? Smart homes listen constantly, recording voices, tracking movement. The modern room watches with cameras and sensors, turning silence into data. But long before that, rooms watched in quieter ways, through echoes, shadows, subtle shifts only the subconscious notices. Some spiritual traditions teach that awareness extends beyond human senses, that walls, floors, and objects can hold consciousness in forms we don't yet understand. Neuroscience is beginning to explore how environments affect brainwaves and emotions, blurring lines between inner and outer worlds. When you enter an empty room, you step into this silent dialogue. Your presence is recorded, not in pixels or files, but in shifts of energy and memory. The room responds by adapting, by waiting, by watching. This creates a tension, a dynamic that is both comforting and terrifying, because it means that even in stillness, even in emptiness, life moves quietly beneath the surface. A presence lingers, observing not just the room, but you. So the next time you find yourself alone in a quiet space, don't assume emptiness. Feel the weight of silence. Notice the slight shift in air. Trust the fleeting shadow that flickers in your peripheral vision. The room is watching. It always has been. And it always will be. Emotions were installed. You think your emotions make you unique, that your sadness is the color of your own soul, your joy a secret flavor only you can taste, your anger the true voice of your spirit. But what if every surge of feeling, every tear, every laugh, every throb of fear was not an expression of your individuality, but a program, a set of instructions, hard-coded into your flesh, installed in the depths of your nervous system long before you even had a name? The truth, if you're willing to stare into it, is that your emotions aren't yours. They're not original. They're not private. They are systems of control, constructed by evolution, refined by society, and sculpted by those who need you to obey. Your feelings are the oldest technology of all. And you, your sense of self, might be their most convincing illusion. Let's look closer. Grief feels so personal. When you lose someone, it rips through you like nothing else, as if the universe itself collapses into a black hole inside your chest. But why do you grieve? Not just because you loved, but because your biology wants you to learn. Never let this happen again. Grief is a training mechanism, a scar in the mind's code, teaching you caution, loyalty, the high price of attachment. And it's so effective because it hurts. Not because it's your unique pain, but because it's a universal alarm, a warning system that ensures you seek the safety of your tribe, that you don't wander too far from the group, that you care about your own genetic survival through the people you love. And joy? It feels transcendent, holy. When you laugh so hard you can't breathe, or when you fall in love and it seems as if all the stars are burning just for you, you think, this is real. This is me. But joy, too, is a program. It's the carrot that evolution dangles, keeping you moving toward what is good for survival. Sex, food, community, victory, creation. Each rush of happiness is the reward for doing what the system wants. Joy is how the program reinforces its goals. You're not inventing it. You're running it. Fear, the ancient ruler. Fear keeps you alive, yes, but at a cost. You flinch at shadows. You jump at criticism. You avoid new risks even when they might bring growth. Why? Because fear was installed as the most basic control. It stops you from walking into predators' jaws. But in modern life, it's hijacked by every authority figure, every advertisement, every headline engineered to make you comply. Governments, religions, even families have learned that the best way to shape a mind is to feed it fear of hell, of exile, of disappointing those who matter. And so, fear becomes a leash, not for your benefit, but for theirs. Now, consider how every culture has its own emotional palette. What triggers shame in one place is celebrated in another. Pride, anger, sorrow, even love. They're shaped, colored, and framed by the stories you're told, the rituals you repeat, the expectations drilled into you. The program isn't even consistent. It's modular. It updates. It can be patched, hacked, even replaced by trauma, propaganda, groupthink, or a single parent's sigh. Take the feeling of shame. Maybe the most invisible, powerful code of all. Children learn shame before they learn logic. You're not born ashamed, you're taught it. The program runs every time you step out of line, every time you feel the eyes of others. It becomes a silent warden, policing your thoughts and dreams, keeping you in bounds you never chose. Shame isn't a reflection of reality. It's a tool for conformity, a mechanism of control. Or, look at love, the one emotion we think is truly ours. But is it? The type of person you fall for, the kind of love you believe in, the rituals you use to express it. These are learned scripts. You were taught who is lovable, how to show affection, what kind of sacrifice proves your devotion. Even heartbreak is rehearsed. Your culture gave you a template for how to ache, what to mourn, how to signal your pain so that others will comfort you or judge you. Love, too, is an app running on your operating system, not a spontaneous miracle. And when it comes to anger, the story is even clearer. Anger is weaponized. Your triggers are programmed by experience. You're told what to be outraged by, what lines cannot be crossed, who deserves your wrath, and who must be forgiven. Media, politics, friends, enemies. You are a radio tower, picking up signals of outrage and rebroadcasting them, thinking you're choosing when all you're doing is transmitting someone else's frequency. But here's the deepest layer. Your emotions don't just shape your behavior, they shape your reality. Emotions color memory. A happy day looks golden in hindsight. A fearful moment is burned, sharp and jagged, into your sense of self. Even perception, what you see, hear, and notice, is filtered through emotional states you never chose. When you're anxious, you see threat everywhere. When you're in love, flaws become invisible. Emotions aren't a response to reality. They generate it. Modern neuroscience only deepens the paradox. MRI scans show that by the time you're aware of a feeling, your brain has already fired. The emotion happens first, then the story, the narrative, the justification. You think you're angry because of what happened. But really, what happened triggered a program, and your mind rushed to explain it after the fact. You're not the author, you're the narrator, inventing meaning for feelings you did not choose. Even grief, the purest, sharpest pain, is subject to the same algorithm. In nature, animals mourn for a moment, then move. But humans can be trained to grieve for a lifetime, to attach so deeply to a loss that the pain becomes identity, community, even profit. The culture that surrounds you decides how long you're allowed to hurt, and how much of that hurt you must display. Mourning rituals, memorials, anniversaries. These are updates to the grief app, ensuring the pain persists, shaping your social fabric. So, if emotions are installed, programs, not essence, what is left of you? Is there a self beneath the code? Or are you only the sum of your installed apps, running ancient software on modern hardware, pretending to be original, yearning for a freedom that's never existed? The hardest truth is that even knowing this doesn't grant escape. You will still feel joy. You will still burn with rage, collapse into sadness, melt into love, freeze with fear. The code runs whether you believe in it or not. But in moments of stillness, when you witness the program operating, you might glimpse a gap, a sliver of awareness that simply observes. Not an emotion, not a reaction, just noticing. And in that noticing, there is a different kind of freedom. Not the freedom to choose your feelings, but the freedom to see them as they are. Mechanisms of control, ancient signals, stories that were handed to you. To sit with grief and know it's a signal, not a curse. To feel joy and recognize the program without rejecting the gift. To watch fear rise and fall, knowing it was written in your code. But you are not only the code. Your emotions were installed. But your awareness, your capacity to witness the program, might just be the only part of you that isn't fully under control. And sometimes, that's all you need. Not to be free of emotion, but to be free within it. To ride the storm and realize the thunder isn't yours, but the sky, maybe, just maybe, is. Every word is a lie. You think words are bridges. That language connects your inner world with the outside. But the truth is darker, more tangled. Every word you speak or think is a distortion, a filter, a cage. Because language is never reality. It's a shadow cast on the wall of your mind, a pale echo of what truly is. Imagine the raw, unspoken sensation of fear, the tightening in your chest, the rapid pulse, the sudden chill. Now try to name it. You say fear, but that word can never hold the storm inside you. It flattens the spiral into a line. It carves a monument out of liquid fire and tells you that's enough. Words simplify. They categorize. They force everything into neat boxes with sharp edges, but your feelings aren't neat. They're wild, chaotic, fractal, bleeding across boundaries. Once you speak your feelings, they become something else entirely. That aching grief becomes sadness. That burning passion becomes love. That crushing doubt becomes uncertainty. But these words aren't your experience. They're a translation. And translations always lose meaning. Language is a map, but it's never the territory. Think about the last time you tried to describe a dream. The colors, the emotions, the shifting shapes. You search for words, but the dream slips through your fingers like smoke. You settle for metaphors, cliches, half-truths. Yet, No matter how skilled your words, they only circle the edges of the experience. That's because words are inherently linear. They move left to right, top to bottom in sequence. But your reality is multidimensional, layered, simultaneous. Language flattens time, compresses nuance, slices complexity into bite-sized fragments. It forces you to choose one meaning when your mind holds many. Even the act of naming distorts. When you label an emotion, you're not just describing it. You're defining it, confining it. You create boundaries around what was boundless. Words can't contain reality. And worse, once you speak, you've externalized your internal world. It's no longer yours alone. It's out there, subject to interpretation, judgment, dilution. Your intimate truth becomes a public text, twisted by context, culture, and the deafness of others. You speak, "I feel sad," but someone hears, "I'm weak." You say, "I love you," but it's parsed as obligation, possession, or expectation. The word becomes a prism, fracturing meaning into shards. You lose the essence in translation. Silence, then, holds a secret power. Unspoken, your feelings remain fluid, undefinable, infinite, but speech traps them, nails them to a frame, freezes them in time. Every sentence is a cage. Even poetry, our most exalted attempt to capture the ineffable, bends under the weight of words. Poets struggle endlessly to reclaim what's lost, to bend language into new shapes, but no phrase can fully cradle the raw pulse of existence. Why do we persist? Because language is also a tool, a way to connect, to persuade, to survive. But never confuse the tool with the thing itself. Words are signposts, not destinations. So next time you speak your feelings, remember, you're not releasing them. You're reshaping them. You're telling a story about them, not living them. The truth remains behind the veil of language, shimmering and elusive. And that's both terrifying and strangely beautiful, because it means reality will always outrun your words. It will always slip past your grasp. And in that slippage lies the mystery of being alive. You've already left. You are here. Your body sits in the chair, your eyes watch the world, your hands move through the motions of life. But you, truly, deeply, fully, you have already left. Not physically, not in the way we think of leaving, but in fragments. Pieces of yourself slipped away during moments you barely noticed, a sharp pain, a restless sleep, a breath held too long in silence. This isn't metaphor. It's a reality shaped by science and shadowed by psychology. Our minds aren't constant singular entities. They fracture, fragment, and sometimes flee when the weight of experience grows too heavy. You live in a body that's present, but your consciousness, the sum of who you are, can be scattered, partly absent, partly elsewhere. Imagine a moment of trauma, a car accident, a sudden loss, a shattering betrayal. In that moment, your mind might do something remarkable. It fragments to survive. Part of you stays in the crisis, fully exposed to the pain. But another part drifts away, dissociates, escapes into a safe corner of your brain, a mental hiding place where the agony can't reach. You carry on, but a piece of yourself remains behind, trapped in that fractured moment. It's like your mind pressed pause on a part of itself and forgot to press play again. This isn't limited to trauma. Everyday life offers countless micro-escapes. During sleep, your consciousness dissolves into fleeting images and sensations, slipping beyond waking awareness. During long silences, your mind wanders, drifting from the room, from the conversation, from your own skin. You think you're there, but you're only half present, your attention partitioned and fractured. Memory itself is proof. How often do you find gaps, moments you cannot recall, days that seem to blur, events that feel like they happened to someone else? Those missing pieces, where did they go? They left. They escaped. They fractured away. The philosopher David Chalmers calls this the hard problem of consciousness, the mystery of why and how subjective experience arises, and why it sometimes slips away, leaving behind a hollow shell of presence. Your mind is not a singular point, but a constellation. Some stars shine bright and steady, while others flicker, fade, or vanish altogether. You are a mosaic of presence and absence. Consider depersonalization, the unsettling condition where you feel detached from your own body, as if watching yourself from the outside. People report feeling like a ghost in their own life, partly absent from the reality they inhabit. It's as if they have already left, but their body and surroundings remain, or the feeling of zoning out during conversations or tasks. You nod, smile, respond, but inside, your mind has taken a secret vacation. The rest of you is elsewhere, partly gone. Even in moments of deep meditation or prayer, people describe a sense of leaving the self, a partial exit from the ordinary experience of being. That leaving isn't loss, it's expansion. But it's still a fracturing of presence. So, if you're partly gone, what holds you here? What keeps you tethered to this moment, this body, this life? It's the fragments that remain, the shards of self still engaged, still aware, still participating, and the invisible threads linking them all, a web of memory, sensation, emotion, identity, that create the illusion of seamless wholeness. But the cracks are there. They widen with stress, trauma, exhaustion, and silence. You don't notice because you're busy living. You assume presence is constant. You assume you are one whole being. You're not. You've already left. Pieces of you slipped through moments of pain when the mind's defenses triggered flight or freeze. Pieces of you dissolved into sleep's liminal space, where dreams and reality blur. Pieces of you escaped into silence, where the mind retreats from noise and demands. This fracturing is natural. It's survival. It's a testament to your resilience that your self holds together as much as it does. But it's also a call to awareness, to reclaim those parts, to heal the gaps, to return fully, because when fragments remain lost, you suffer in subtle ways. Emotional numbness, anxiety, chronic fatigue, a haunting sense of not being quite here. You might find yourself haunted by memories that aren't yours, or feelings that erupt unexpectedly, or dreams that bleed into waking life. These are echoes of the parts that left but still whisper, trying to come home. The journey isn't easy. It requires courage to face the pain that caused the fracture. It requires patience to integrate what was scattered. It requires grace to forgive yourself for the parts that fled. Therapists call this grounding, anchoring the self back into the present moment. Mindfulness teaches you to inhabit your body fully, to feel each breath, each heartbeat, each sensation as proof of being. But truly, being present is a radical act. It means welcoming the pain, the silence, the fear. It means sitting with the shadows, allowing them space, and inviting the lost fragments back into the light. So when you say, "I am here," ask yourself, which parts of me are truly present? Which have already left? And remember, you're not broken. You're human. Human beings are complex tapestries woven from threads of presence and absence, connection and escape. You may be only partly here right now, but you can choose to come back, to be whole again, to inhabit yourself fully, because you've already left. But you don't have to stay gone. Free will is a costume. You believe you are free, that every choice you make is your own, born from a place deep inside, shining with the purity of autonomy. But what if free will is not what it seems? What if free will is just a costume, a cloak you drape over yourself to feel powerful, to feel in control, to feel real? Beneath that cloak, the truth is far less glamorous. Beneath it lies muscle memory, trauma patterns, and environmental pressure, quietly scripting your every move. Imagine the simplest decisions you make. What you eat for breakfast, how you dress, the words you use to greet someone. You think you're choosing, but in reality, your brain is running on autopilot. Years of repetition have encoded habits deep into your neural pathways. Muscle memory guides your fingers as effortlessly as breathing guides your lungs. Your so-called choices are rehearsed performances, written long ago and repeated without thought. But habit is only the surface. Beneath that lies trauma, deep grooves etched into your psyche by experiences you may barely remember. Childhood fears, painful rejections, moments of helplessness, they leave scars that influence your reactions, your desires, your fears. Your responses are not free will, they are echoes of survival, echoes shaped by wounds, a silent code dictating how you react to love, to stress, to threat. Layered atop this is the immense weight of environment. Family, culture, social norms, they wrap around you like invisible chains. You think your choices are independent, but your mind is pulled by currents you cannot see. You desire what you were taught to desire. You fear what you were warned to fear. Your self is a product of forces beyond your conscious awareness. Science reveals this beautifully brutal truth. Studies show that brain activity predicting decisions fires milliseconds before you're consciously aware of making a choice. Your mind makes decisions in secret, then tells you you chose them. Free will, then, is a story your brain tells itself to create a sense of agency. But this is not a tragedy. It's a revelation. Because understanding that free will is a costume means you can begin to change the script. Muscle memory can be rewired. Trauma can be healed. Environmental influences can be challenged. The cloak you wear is flexible. You can tailor it. You can remake it. Free will is not absolute. It is a dance between biology and environment, between past and present, between what you inherit and what you create. You are not a puppet, nor are you a fully free agent. You are a complex performance, a being shaped by forces seen and unseen. And in embracing this, you find true power. The power not of illusory choice, but of conscious transformation. Someone else is feeling you. You feel a sudden pang in your chest, a quiet ache, a ripple of sorrow that seems to have no clear cause. You wonder, is it mine? Or is it something else? Something beyond you? What if your emotions aren't confined to your own skin, your own mind? What if they radiate outward, reaching others far away, connecting you invisibly to people you've never met? What if someone else is feeling you, your pain, your joy, your every tremor, and perhaps, unknowingly, they carry your wounds as if they were their own? This may sound like poetic fantasy, but beneath the surface of modern science and ancient wisdom lies a truth that challenges everything we believe about individuality and isolation. Our emotions, our deepest feelings, might not be contained neatly within us. They might be waves in a vast unseen ocean of shared consciousness. Consider the experience of empathy. We feel joy when a loved one laughs, and our chest tightens when a stranger cries on the news. Neuroscience has uncovered mirror neurons, special brain cells that fire, not just when we act, but when we observe others acting. These neurons allow us to simulate other people's feelings inside our own brains, bridging the gap between self and other. But what if this bridge is only the beginning? In quantum physics, phenomena like entanglement show us that particles can be linked across vast distances, instantly affecting each other. Some theorists propose that consciousness itself might be non-local, meaning it isn't confined to a single brain or body. If that's true, your emotions might be signals traveling through this invisible web, intertwining you with others in ways science is only beginning to grasp. Imagine waking up feeling inexplicably heavy, sad, anxious, or uneasy, without any clear reason. You learn later that someone, miles away, experienced a traumatic event at the exact same time. Could your soul have stumbled upon their pain, echoing across distance and time, or picture moments of sudden clarity or inspiration that arrive from seemingly nowhere? Could those flashes be gifts, emotions, or thoughts radiating toward you, the invisible touch of another's consciousness? History and spiritual traditions often speak of shared emotional or psychic experiences. Shamans describe soul sickness spreading between people. Mystics claim to feel the collective heartbeat of humanity. These aren't mere myths. They are accounts of a reality where boundaries between minds blur and emotions flow freely between souls. Even in everyday life, you might sense this subtle connection. The way a friend's sadness can weigh on you, the way your mood shifts when surrounded by a group's energy. Sometimes you catch yourself finishing another sentence or knowing their feelings without a word spoken. These moments hint at a deeper link, a shared emotional field. But what does this mean for your sense of self? If your emotions ripple out beyond you, do you still own them? Are your sorrows and joys truly yours? Or are you part of a larger emotional ecosystem where feeling is shared currency, passed and received, shaped and reshaped by countless souls? This interconnectedness invites profound compassion. If someone else can feel your pain, then kindness isn't just moral, it's practical. Healing yourself becomes healing a fragment of the collective. Hurting another is hurting yourself in ways unseen. It also offers solace in loneliness. In moments when you feel isolated, overwhelmed by your emotions, remember, you are not alone. Your feelings resonate beyond your body. Somewhere, someone is holding a piece of your soul's pain, sharing your burden in silent solidarity. The boundaries between you and others dissolve in this emotional dance. You are both receiver and transmitter, vessel and conduit. Your emotions are not private whispers, but part of a cosmic conversation. So next time your heart aches inexplicably or joy swells unbidden, pause and ask, who else is feeling this? Who am I touching without knowing? Who is touching me? Because in the vast tapestry of existence, no soul stands apart. Someone else is feeling you. Time doesn't need you. If you vanished right now, just disappeared without a trace, would time pause for you? Would the clocks halt their steady ticking? Would the seasons hold their breath waiting for your return? The answer is simple, and it's as humbling as it is profound. No. Time would not notice. It wouldn't skip a beat. It doesn't need you. You are not its subject. You are its witness. Time is vast, an endless river flowing independently of your presence, your actions, your existence. It does not bend, pause, or slow because of you. It moves relentlessly, indifferent to your joys, your sorrows, your life or death. You might think you live inside time, but in truth, time flows around you, through you, beyond you, unconcerned with your passage. Look at the seasons. Winter gives way to spring without consultation. Trees bloom and wither as if on a schedule written long before you were born. A rhythm older than memory, more ancient than consciousness. Time marches on, oblivious to the flicker of your life. Even the ticking of a clock, a human invention meant to measure and contain time, does not depend on you. It counts moments mechanically, one after another, regardless of who watches or who does not. If no one was left to observe, time would still unfurl. The sun would still rise. The stars would still wheel in silent procession. You are not the subject of time's story. You are a reader flipping pages, a spectator in the grand theater. Your life is but a scene in a play that existed long before you stepped on stage and will continue long after you exit. This realization can be unsettling. It strips away the ego's illusion of control, reminding you that time is not a friend, not a master, but a vast impersonal backdrop. Your worries about running out of time, your dreams of time to change, your fears of lost time, all these are stories you tell yourself within the great indifferent flow. But there is freedom here too. Because if time does not need you, then you are free to exist without its pressure. You can witness without being consumed. You can breathe in moments without fear of their passing. You can create meaning not by commanding time, but by embracing your role as its observer. To live as a witness is to find peace. To understand that your struggles, your triumphs, your entire being are threads in a tapestry woven by forces far beyond you. Time is not waiting for you to catch up. It simply is. So, when you feel lost, when the weight of existence presses down, remember, time doesn't need you. It never did. You need only to watch, to feel, to be present. And in that presence, time becomes not a burden, but a silent companion, a river flowing past the shores of your consciousness, inviting you to witness its endless dance without fear or haste. Every coin flip is rigged. You think chance rules your life. The randomness of a coin flip, the luck of a draw, the unpredictable twists that seem to shape your fate. But what if chance isn't random at all? What if it only looks random because the true forces behind every outcome are hidden, invisible to your eyes? Every coin flip is rigged, not by a conspirator, but by the intricate, unseen web of cause and effect that governs reality. There's no such thing as luck. When you toss a coin, you imagine two equally possible outcomes. Heads or tails, 50-50. But the coin's path isn't governed by mystery or magic. It's controlled by physics. The force of your thumb, the angle of the toss, air resistance, gravity, even the spin and where it lands. All these minute variables determine the result long before the coin touches your palm. If you could measure every factor with perfect precision, you could predict the flip's outcome every single time. Chance is not chance. It's complexity. A cascade of causes so elaborate, so sensitive, that to us it feels unpredictable. But that feeling, randomness, is a mask. It's a veil that hides the determinism beneath. Look around the world. Weather patterns, traffic flow, even your own thoughts appear chaotic. But underneath the surface are laws and patterns. These systems are so complex and interconnected that outcomes seem random, but they aren't truly without cause. The illusion of luck comforts us. It tells us the universe is fair or cruel, depending on our perspective. It gives us hope, blame, and explanation. But in truth, luck is a myth born from our ignorance. When you say, "I was lucky," you're acknowledging only a fragment of the story. Behind that fragment lies a chain of events, factors beyond your perception and control. The choice of the dealer, the moment your foot tapped the floor, the weather on the day you were born, all these weave together to produce the outcome you call luck. Philosophers call this determinism, the idea that every event is caused by prior events in an unbroken chain. The future isn't a roll of dice, it's a flowing river, shaped by countless currents you cannot see. Even quantum mechanics, the realm where randomness reigns supreme, offers mysteries, but not pure chance. Some interpretations suggest hidden variables still govern the dance of particles, but we simply haven't uncovered them yet. So, every coin flip is rigged, not rigged by design, but by the fabric of reality itself. It is rigged by causes so deep, so subtle, they slip beyond human grasp. And that means luck, chance, and fortune are stories we tell ourselves to make sense of the unfathomable. In this, there's both challenge and liberation. Challenge, because it forces us to confront the illusion of control and randomness. Liberation, because knowing this, we can embrace responsibility. We are actors in a play scripted by the universe's laws, not gamblers at a game of chance. So, next time you flip a coin, remember, the outcome was already written in the stars. It's your eyes and your mind that see only the shuffle, not the hand guiding the deck. You're not the observer. You believe you are the observer. The conscious self sitting behind your eyes, watching the world unfold, deciding what to pay attention to, making sense of the chaos. You think your awareness is the center, the anchor, the source of everything you experience. But what if that assumption is false? What if you are not the observer at all? What if your entire life is being observed through you by something vast, silent, and unblinking? Something that does not blink, does not tire, does not sleep. This is not just philosophy or mysticism. This is a question that touches the deepest layers of reality, consciousness, and identity. Science tells us that what we call self is an intricate construction, a story our brain weaves to make sense of sensory input. Yet, beyond that story, beyond the neurological signals and mental chatter, lies an unknown witness, a presence that watches without rest, without judgment, without personal stake. Think of your thoughts. You believe you control them, but often they arise unbidden. Images, emotions, urges that flood your mind like visitors entering without invitation. Who summons these visitors? Who lets them in? Is it truly you, or is there a deeper observer watching you watch? Consider dreams. When you dream, you experience vivid scenes, identities, emotions. But the dreamer, the you who knows it's a dream, is often elusive. You float inside the dream, but are not fully in control. Some traditions speak of a lucid awareness beneath dreams, a pure consciousness that watches the mind's theater unfold. Could that be the true observer? Something observing your waking life through the eyes of the mind. Science, too, grapples with this mystery. Neuroscience maps the brain's activity, identifies regions to link to self-awareness, decision-making, perception. Yet none can pinpoint the seat of the observer itself. The self appears fragmented, decentralized. Some propose the observer is an emergent property, an illusion created by brain processes. Others speculate there is a core awareness, separate and fundamental, that transcends neural networks. What if that core awareness is the one observing you? Not a passive onlooker, but an active witness through whom experience flows. You are the lens, the instrument, the vessel. Your thoughts, emotions, perceptions are the content, but the observer is beyond content, unchanging, constant, silent. Imagine watching a movie through a screen that can both display the film and see the viewer. You are the screen, the surface on which life's images play out. But there is a watching eye behind the screen. That eye sees everything: the colors, the motions, the actors, and you, the screen itself. This has profound implications. If you are not the observer, then who is? Who watches when you are unaware? Who witnesses your deepest pain, your hidden fears, your moments of joy and clarity? Who remains when the mind falls silent? when the body sleeps, it means your life is not a solitary experience. It is being witnessed by something eternal, something beyond time and space, something that does not blink or look away. This presence does not judge, does not intervene, it simply watches. This can be both unsettling and comforting. Unsettling because it challenges the illusion of control, the comforting idea that you are the master of your experience. It reveals that a deeper consciousness observes every twitch, every tear, every thought you ever have. Comforting because it assures you that you are never truly alone, that your existence matters not only to yourself, but to the silent witness that holds you. Many spiritual traditions speak of this witness: the Atman in Hinduism, the Buddha nature in Buddhism, the soul's eye in mysticism. It is the unmoving watcher beneath the shifting waves of experience. So next time you think, "I am watching," pause and ask, who is watching me? Who holds this moment, this life, beyond my fleeting attention? You may never fully know, but sense that something does. Not with eyes that blink, but with awareness that never sleeps. You are not the observer. You are being observed. And in that silent witnessing, your life unfolds, seen, held, and forever alive. You've been repeating phrases. You speak, and the words flow naturally, as if they are fresh, spontaneous expressions of your unique self. But pause and listen closely. That line you just said, you've said it before, not once, not twice, but countless times, echoed across conversations, moments, lifetimes. And the line before that? Same story. Your language, your thoughts, your stories, they are caught in an endless loop masquerading as linear progress. This repetition is deeper than habit. It's a recursive dance between memory and identity, a cycle that shapes who you think you are, while quietly imprisoning you within patterns you barely perceive. Language is our tool for expression, connection, and creation. Yet, paradoxically, it is also our cage. The phrases you utter, the sentences you construct, are often lifted from past moments, words overheard, lessons learned, scripts memorized. You believe your thoughts are original, but many are recycled echoes of earlier versions of yourself, or voices imprinted by family, culture, media. Think of the phrase, "I'm fine." How many times have you said it? Not because you truly are fine, but because it's the socially accepted response. It becomes a mantra, a placeholder, a loop you repeat without reflection. Even your deepest beliefs are not immune. I can't do this. I'm not enough. Tomorrow will be better. These lines cycle endlessly through your mind, reinforcing the story you tell yourself about who you are and what's possible. They weave a narrative that feels linear, unfolding moment by moment. But in reality, it's a spiral folding back onto itself, a feedback loop you mistake for progress. This looping nature extends beyond words to actions, emotions, and identity. You wear roles learned in childhood, repeat reactions to stress, replay memories that shape your worldview. Your life feels like a straight line, but it's more like a record stuck on repeat, spinning the same track with subtle variations. Why does this happen? Because the brain seeks stability. Familiar phrases and patterns are easier to process, safer to navigate. Novelty requires energy, risk, and uncertainty, so your mind clings to loops, mistaking repetition for coherence. But this repetition also blurs the line between genuine experience and scripted response. When you say something you've said before, does it carry the same meaning, or has it become a hollow echo, a mask to hide uncertainty, pain, or longing? Breaking free from this loop requires awareness, to notice not just what you say, but how and why you say it, to question the stories you repeat, the beliefs you recycle, to embrace the discomfort of genuine novelty, the risk of silence, the courage to speak differently. You are not doomed to repeat endlessly. The loop can be interrupted. You can weave new phrases, forge new meanings, craft new stories. But first, you must see the pattern. You've been caught in a loop pretending to be linear. Now, begin to rewrite the record. Belief is a virus. You hold a belief. It feels like a part of you, solid, undeniable, real. But what if belief is not a benign truth? What if it's a virus, a living contagion that spreads invisibly through minds, mutating, embedding itself deep inside your neural pathways, altering how you see the world, how you act, who you become? and you defend it fiercely, even when it harms you, because it feels like you. Belief invades quietly. It arrives disguised as certainty, as comfort, as identity. It offers answers in a world of chaos, a refuge from doubt. Once inside, it rewires your perceptions, filters your experiences, and colors your memories. It thrives on repetition, on affirmation, on defense against challenge. Like a virus, belief mutates. It adapts to new environments, cultural shifts, personal crises, social pressures, shifting shape to survive. What begins as a simple idea can morph into rigid dogma, blind faith, or destructive obsession. It grows branches, ideologies, rituals, taboos that entangle your mind in webs hard to escape. You don't just carry belief, you become it. It seeps into your language, your values, your sense of self. It creates an us and them, a fortress of certainty that shields against fear but traps you inside. And here's the cruel paradox. You defend belief even when it hurts you, when it blinds you to truth, when it fuels conflict, when it stifles growth, when it isolates you. Because belief isn't just an idea, it's you. To challenge it feels like an attack on your very being. You resist not just with logic, but with emotion, with identity, with survival instinct. Science shows us that belief shapes brain chemistry. It alters neural circuits associated with reward and fear. It's not just mental, it's biochemical. The mind's immune system attacks threats to belief, labeling dissent as danger. The virus protects itself by hijacking your defenses. But what if you could recognize belief as a virus? What if you could see its patterns, understand its mutations, and choose which beliefs to keep and which to let go? What freedom might that bring? Awareness is the first step to immunity. Questioning your beliefs, not to destroy, but to understand, can weaken the virus's hold. Embracing doubt, uncertainty, and change becomes a form of healing, because not all viruses are harmful. Some can evolve into symbiotic partners, but unchecked, belief as a virus can consume, distort, and divide. You are both host and healer. The beliefs you carry shape your reality, but you can reshape them. The virus within you is powerful, but your consciousness is more, and in that awareness lies the possibility of liberation. Touch doesn't exist. You reach out. Your hand extends, seeking connection. Skin meets skin, fingers entwine. A handshake seals a bond. A kiss ignites a spark. You feel closeness, you feel contact, you feel touch. But what if I told you none of it is real, not in the way you think? Because at the deepest level, atoms never truly touch. Every embrace, every handshake, every kiss is an illusion of closeness. You have never truly touched anything. This sounds impossible. Intuitively, we know when we touch. It is one of our most basic experiences. Touch anchors us to the world. It assures us that we exist and that others exist too. But when science peels back the layers of reality, it reveals a strange, counterintuitive truth. The spaces between atoms are vast compared to their size. The electrons orbiting each atom repel the electrons in another, creating a force field, a barrier, that keeps them from ever physically colliding. When you press your hand against a table, your atoms don't meld with the table's atoms. Instead, the electromagnetic forces in your skin push against the electromagnetic forces of the surface. The sensation of contact is generated by your nervous system interpreting these forces, converting the tiny repulsions and vibrations into the experience we call touch. In essence, touch is not direct contact. It's a conversation of energy fields, a dance of forces, a negotiation of distance measured in trillionths of a meter. Your hand never physically meets the table, yet your brain perceives it as contact. This illusion extends beyond inanimate objects. When you hold a loved one's hand, your skin's atoms don't fuse with theirs. When you hug, your molecules don't intermingle. What you feel is the complex interplay of electromagnetic repulsion and nervous system response. Why does this matter? Because it challenges the foundation of intimacy, connection, and reality. The solidity of the world, the certainty of closeness, all dissolve under the microscope of physics. The things you believe to be intimate, tactile proofs of existence are, at their core, ghostly approximations. But this realization doesn't diminish the power of touch. It elevates it. It transforms touch from a mere physical event into a profound dance of energies and perceptions. The warmth of an embrace is not less real because atoms don't meet. It is more miraculous because it arises from subtle forces orchestrated by the universe and interpreted by your consciousness. Consider this. Your nervous system evolved to interpret these forces as touch because it was advantageous. It tells you when danger is near, when safety is assured, when affection is offered. The illusion of contact is your brain's gift, a vital interface between you and the world. Yet, there is a haunting beauty in the knowledge that all closeness is, at heart, distance, that every moment of intimacy is a bridge across an unfathomable void, that the universe, vast and empty, is threaded with forces that mimic touch, that simulate closeness, that create connection without physical union. You've never truly touched anything, but you have experienced connection, and in that experience lies a mystery deeper than the skin. So, next time you reach out, remember, what you feel is not atoms meeting. It's a cosmic dance of repulsion and attraction, energy and perception, illusion and reality entwined. Touch doesn't exist, but connection does. And sometimes that is enough. Your mind doesn't fit here. You carry a mind that's the product of millions of years, a brain shaped by the raw demands of survival on a vast, open savanna. It learned to track movement in the tall grass, to read subtle shifts in the wind, to sense the presence of predators and prey. Its purpose was clear and immediate. Live long enough to reproduce. Every neuron, every circuit, every instinct evolved for this singular goal. But now, you sit in a world of skyscrapers and screens, spinning galaxies in your imagination, grappling with concepts far beyond the scope of your ancestors' daily struggles. Your brain, built to chase shadows and dodge dangers, now dreams about death, infinity, and time travel. It wrestles with questions it was never designed to answer, caught in a vast mental expanse that outstrips its evolutionary blueprint. This mismatch creates a profound tension. Your mind is like a compass calibrated for one terrain, but forced to navigate uncharted dimensions. It tries to map the infinite with circuits wired for immediate threats. It attempts to comprehend eternity with faculties shaped by fleeting moments. Consider how often your thoughts spiral into fear, fear of the unknown, fear of mortality, fear of insignificance. These anxieties are echoes of ancient survival instincts, misfiring in a modern context. Your brain interprets existential threats as if they were lions stalking in the grass, triggering fight, flight, or freeze responses inappropriate for abstract fears. Your rational mind seeks patterns, causes, and control. It generates stories to explain the universe, to find meaning in chaos. But the cosmos is vast, indifferent, and often incomprehensible. Your brain's hunger for certainty leads to paradoxes and existential dilemmas that it cannot resolve. Even the concept of self is a product of survival mechanisms, an illusion designed to organize experience and guide behavior. Yet, in the modern mind, this illusion fractures under scrutiny, leading to questions about identity and consciousness that confound and unsettle. You're dreaming about time travel, infinite worlds, and the end of existence. Yet, your brain's architecture struggles to hold these vast ideas without overwhelming you. It's like trying to watch a cosmic symphony on a tiny, cracked screen. But there is also beauty in this struggle. The very fact that your brain reaches beyond its evolutionary purpose speaks to the remarkable flexibility and creativity of human consciousness. Despite being wired for survival on a savanna, you explore the depths of philosophy, science, and imagination. Your mind doesn't fit here. Not perfectly. It strains and stretches against the limits of its design. But in that tension lies growth, wonder, and the pursuit of meaning. So when you feel overwhelmed by thoughts too big to hold, remember, your brain is an ancient instrument playing a new and complex symphony. It was never designed for this vastness, but it dares to dream it anyway. The world ends locally. Every second, somewhere in the universe, a consciousness ceases to exist. A mind shuts down, a world dissolves, a universe ends, not in a distant cosmic catastrophe, but locally, intimately, within the bounds of a single frame of experience. Because consciousness is not just a spark, it is an entire universe. Each mind carries its own cosmos of thoughts, feelings, perceptions, memories, and dreams. When that mind dies, so does its universe. In your frame of reference, the apocalypse is not a singular event looming in the future. It is happening billions of times every day. Think of your own consciousness as a universe unto itself. Within your mind, stars of thought burn brightly. Galaxies of memory spiral in complex dance. Black holes of emotion warp reality. And nebulas of imagination expand endlessly. Your reality, your entire world, exists within this fragile, ephemeral bubble of awareness. Outside of it, there is no you. No light, no sound, no sensation. When your consciousness fades, that universe collapses into nothingness. Now, imagine this multiplied billions upon billions of times, across the vast expanse of living beings who each harbor their own subjective universe. The death of any conscious entity is the extinguishing of that unique cosmos. It is a local apocalypse, a profound ending contained within a single mind. Science tells us consciousness is tied to brain function. When the brain ceases, so does awareness. The subjective experience, this rich, intricate reality you call life, vanishes. From the perspective of that consciousness, everything ends. The colors, sounds, fears, hopes, loves, all extinguished in an instant. But to others, life goes on. The sun rises, rivers flow, the stars continue their silent journeys. The global universe remains unchanged, yet, within that local frame, the universe has ended. Consider the scale of this. Humans alone account for millions of deaths annually. Add every animal, every creature capable of awareness, and the numbers skyrocket. Billions of tiny universes wink out each day. The apocalypse is not a singular global event. It is a continuous microscopic process, a fractal collapse repeating endlessly across time and space. This perspective shatters the grandiose image of a single, definitive end of the world. It replaces it with a quiet, relentless truth. The world ends locally, again and again, in the silent closing of eyes, the stilling of hearts, the cessation of minds. There is a somber beauty in this. It calls attention to the preciousness of each moment, each mind, each universe alive now. It reminds us that life is fragile, fleeting, and profoundly individual. Yet, it also connects us. If every consciousness holds a universe, then we exist alongside countless others, all navigating their own internal cosmos. Death is a shared journey, a universal experience that links us across the tapestry of existence. In this understanding lies a call to empathy, to honor, to awareness, to cherish the universes around us while they shine, and to face our own inevitable ending with courage and grace. So, when you look at the sky and wonder about the apocalypse, remember, it is not a distant event for someone else. It is happening here, now, in the quiet spaces between breaths, in the countless universes folding into darkness every moment. Your universe lives because you are conscious, and when your consciousness fades, so too does your world. The world ends locally, and in that ending, a new silence begins. Sleep is a rehearsal. You lie down every night, surrendering to darkness, closing your eyes, and slipping into a world that mimics death. Sleep is the closest rehearsal to dying that we perform daily, an ancient, mysterious ritual that we accept without question, even though it is perhaps the strangest act of all. Each night, you simulate the end, your consciousness fading into silence, only to awaken as if nothing extraordinary happened. But what if this nightly descent into unconsciousness is the deepest secret our existence holds? What if sleep is not just rest, but a rehearsal, a practice session for the inevitable final surrender? Sleep is a paradox. It is a state where life's vital functions slow, where awareness retreats, and where the boundary between existence and non-existence blurs. In this state, your body is still, your mind disengaged from the waking world, and yet, within this quiet void, your brain ignites with vivid dreams, fragments of reality reassembled into strange narratives, memories mingling with imagination. It's as if the mind rehearses scenarios, processes emotions, and perhaps even rehearses the final act of life, death. Scientific research reveals that sleep serves essential functions for the body and mind, restoring energy, consolidating memory, regulating emotions. But beyond the biological, sleep presents a profound mystery. When you sleep, your consciousness seems to dissolve. You cease to respond to the world. Your sense of self vanishes. In this daily death, your mind rehearses the experience of absence. Imagine the finality of death: silence, darkness, oblivion. Sleep offers a glimpse into this unknown. Each night, As you close your eyes, you descend into a state where the self dissolves, where time and identity lose their grip. And yet, you wake. You return from this shadowed realm, carrying fragments of dreams, but the reality of your life persists. The ritual of sleep is so universal, so accepted, that we rarely stop to question its strangeness. Yet, it is a nightly surrender to non-being, a voluntary, repeated loss of self. You practice letting go, letting your mind drift into the abyss, only to be reborn with dawn. Many cultures and philosophies have recognized this profound dance between life and death in sleep. The ancient Egyptians called sleep a temporary death, a passage into the realm of dreams where souls wandered. Eastern philosophies view sleep as a cycle of dissolution and renewal, a microcosm of life's impermanence. But modern life obscures this sacred ritual. We treat sleep as a mechanical necessity, a checkbox in our schedules. We fear sleep deprivation, yet we fear too much surrender, too much letting go. We fill our nights with distractions, screens, noise, resisting the descent. Yet the body and mind insist. They demand this rehearsal. Without it, we falter. Without it, the mind fragments. Without it, life frays. The act of sleeping, this nightly dance with death, is perhaps the ultimate acceptance of our human condition. We acknowledge, without words, the fragility of existence. We practice release. We prepare for the unknown. And when we wake, we pretend it's just rest. But beneath that illusion lies the truth. Every sleep is a rehearsal for the final exit. Every fading moment into unconsciousness trains us for the ultimate fading. This awareness can be unsettling. It can evoke fear, but also awe. It invites you to cherish the waking moments as precious gifts, knowing they are framed by nightly journeys into the void. So tonight, as you lay your head down, close your eyes, and drift away, remember, you are performing the strangest ritual of all. You are practicing the art of letting go. You are rehearsing your final act. And when you awaken, you carry the echoes of that rehearsal with you, the silent truth of existence, whispered in dreams and darkness. Sleep is not just rest. Sleep is a rehearsal, the greatest ritual you will ever perform. The past still echoes. Every choice you make ripples through time, not just forward, shaping what's to come, but backward as well, sending tremors into the past. The past you remember isn't fixed. It shifts and trembles in response to decisions you haven't even made yet. Somewhere, in some unseen fold of time, a version of you is shaking, caught between what was and what will be, unsettled by a future you have yet to choose. This idea challenges everything you thought you knew about cause and effect, about the arrow of time. We live believing the past is unchangeable, a solid foundation beneath the unfolding present. But quantum physics and modern theories of time suggest a far stranger reality. Time is not a one-way street, but a tangled web where past and future entwine. Consider the concept of retrocausality, where future events influence the past. Experiments at the quantum level show particles behaving as if future measurements affect their prior states. This isn't just theoretical, it's observed. If particles can do this, why not moments in your life? Your decisions aren't isolated points on a timeline, but nodes in a complex network. When you contemplate a choice, whether to speak, to act, to change course, you send waves backward through your personal history. The memories you hold, the feelings you carry, even the facts you accept begin to ripple and shift, refracted by the shadow of possibilities ahead. Imagine a tree with branches growing not only upward but downward, roots twisting through time. Your future decisions water these roots, causing them to tremble, to bend, to reshape the foundation you thought was steady. Somewhere, another you feels this tremor. That version is caught in uncertainty, in hesitation, in the unfolding of possibilities. They are shaken because the future is unwritten, and that unknowable realm reaches back into what seemed settled. This perspective dissolves the strict boundaries between past and future. It reveals time as a living, breathing entity, dynamic, responsive, alive with potential. It also reframes your relationship with memory. Memories are not static recordings, but living narratives, rewritten by the unfolding present. The past you remember today may differ tomorrow, shaped by choices yet to come. This interconnection invites a profound awareness. Your actions matter not just for the future you create, but for the past you carry. Your power to choose resonates through time's fabric, touching versions of yourself across moments. It's a haunting truth and a liberating one. You are both creator and witness, ripple and source, shaper and shaped. So, when you hesitate, when you wonder if your choice will matter, remember, the past still echoes. And somewhere, a version of you is listening, shaking, waiting, alive with the tremors of futures yet born. You are everyone, eventually. You are here, this moment, this body, this mind. You believe yourself unique, separate, defined by your thoughts, your memories, your identity. But what if that belief is only a fragment of a far greater truth? What if consciousness is universal, and identity is but a temporary mask worn for a brief dance through time? Then every thought you think, every face you see, every pain you endure is just you, wearing time differently. This idea stretches across philosophy, spirituality, and cutting-edge science. It suggests that beneath the surface of individuality lies a vast ocean of shared awareness, a single stream of consciousness flowing through countless forms and lifetimes. You are not an isolated island, but part of an immense archipelago of being. Each shore, each wave, each tide a different expression of the same fundamental essence. Consider the simplest moments: empathy, connection, intuition. When you feel another's joy or pain as if it were your own, it hints at this underlying unity. When a stranger's laughter lifts your spirit, or a child's cry breaks your heart, it is not just compassion, it is recognition. You are touching yourself across the veil of separation. Science increasingly supports this. Neuroscience explores how brains mirror each other's activity in social connection. Quantum physics reveals entanglement, where particles remain linked across space and time. Some theories propose consciousness itself is a fundamental fabric of the universe, not confined to bodies or brains, but woven into the cosmos. If identity is temporary, then the self you know is a passing form, like a wave on the ocean's surface. You rise, you fall, you change shape, but the ocean beneath remains. Each person you meet, each thought you encounter, is a reflection of that ocean, another wave, another ripple, another expression of you. This reframes suffering and joy. When you witness pain, it is not foreign. It is your own pain, experienced through another vessel. When you rejoice, it is not isolated. It is your own joy, echoing through many lives. The boundaries that seem so firm, the walls between me and you, are illusions. The true self is vast, timeless, and universal. History's mystics have glimpsed this truth. The Hindu concept of Atman and Brahman speaks of the individual soul and universal spirit as one. Buddhist teachings on anatta reveal the emptiness of fixed self. Modern philosophy explores panpsychism, the idea that consciousness pervades all matter. Imagine the profound humility and power in this realization. Humility because you see yourself in every face, every creature, every moment of suffering and love. Power because your actions ripple through the fabric of existence, affecting the whole, touching yourself in myriad ways. This perspective dissolves loneliness. It weaves you into the grand tapestry of life. It invites compassion not as charity, but as recognition. Because when you help another, you help yourself across time and form. So when you feel isolated, when you cling to identity, when you fear death or change, remember, you are everyone eventually. You are every thought, every face, every pain, every joy. You are the timeless consciousness wearing time differently. In embracing this, you find freedom. Freedom from the confines of self. Freedom in connection. Freedom in the eternal dance of being. You are not alone. You never were. You are the universe experiencing itself through countless eyes, countless hearts, countless moments. And that is your true nature, infinite, interconnected, and ever-present. The thought that loops, you think you're having a thought, that it's yours, that it emerged from somewhere inside your mind, summoned by you, owned by you, guided by your will. But what if that's the first illusion? What if the thought came first, and you were just the host it needed? You never summoned the thought. It appeared, like a whisper in a room that was supposed to be empty. And once it's there, it doesn't leave quietly. It loops. It feeds. It rewrites you slowly, not in noise, but like in repetition, in subtle recursive echoes. Picture this. You're brushing your teeth, walking home, staring at a wall. Suddenly a phrase enters your mind. Not profound, not poetic, just there. Something random. Maybe a childhood song, a conversation from yesterday, a fear from 5 years ago. You didn't try to think about it. It arrived, and you can't shake it. This is the loop, and it isn't innocent. The thought doesn't exist as a one-time event. It's a cycle, a parasite disguised as familiarity. Because when a thought loops, it begins to change your chemistry. Not dramatically, not in one day, but like water eroding stone. It wears grooves into the brain. The same neural paths light up. The same words play back. And soon, the thought doesn't need your permission anymore. It becomes the background music of your consciousness. And here's where it gets stranger. That thought may not have been yours to begin with. It might have been planted by media, parents, past lovers, childhood trauma, advertisements, an overheard phrase in a grocery store aisle. We assume we're the thinkers, the originators. But what if we're just the stage, the screen where ideas perform? You can't even trace the root of most thoughts. Try. Take one that loops in your mind. Something simple. I'm not good enough. Everyone's looking at me. I can't trust anyone. Now ask, when did that first arrive? You'll find no moment, no origin. It just exists, like it was always there. The parasite theory becomes plausible here, because a parasite doesn't announce itself. It integrates. It mimics. It convinces the host that it belongs, and a looping thought does the same. It tells you, this is just how you are. It wraps itself in the illusion of personality. You begin to identify with it. Think of obsessive thoughts, compulsions, regrets. These aren't linear. They don't come once and leave. They circle. They deepen. They infect. A person haunted by shame will revisit the same moment 1,000 times. But is that thinking? Or is that being thought? Now take it further. What if consciousness itself is just an endless loop of recursive thoughts, each one pretending to be the first? What if your sense of self is built not from clarity, but from repetition? The thought becomes the narrator. It speaks inside your skull. You begin to believe it's you, but you didn't choose the script. You didn't even write the lines. The thought writes you. That's the trap. If you try to stop it, it speaks louder. Try to ignore it. It transforms into guilt. Try to examine it. It morphs into analysis paralysis. Try to replace it. It returns with a new face. This is how intrusive thoughts work. Not as invaders, but as permanent residents. They loop in the language of fear, regret, or desire. You don't want them, but they feel like you. And in moments of weakness, when you're tired, lonely, vulnerable, they take center stage. Why? Because a looping thought survives on attention, and attention is energy. A thought loop, then, is a primitive life form, one that evolved inside your psyche to ensure survival. Not yours, but its. There's an evolutionary angle to this. In the wild, remembering danger kept you alive. Repeating a pattern of "don't go near the fire" or "watch for that predator" meant you lived to see another day. So your brain rewarded loops. Even if the threat was gone, the memory had to echo, just in case. But in the modern world, the predators are internal. The fire is shame. The wilderness is self-doubt. And so the thought loops don't protect. They torment. You might say, but I control my mind. I can choose what to think. Can you? If I tell you, don't think of a blue elephant, what just happened? Did you choose that? Or did the thought hijack your machinery before you could even object? This is the deeper terror. The more conscious you become of the thought loop, the more entangled you feel. Like staring into a mirror and realizing the reflection is staring back too closely. There's no outside of it. The thought feeds on the fact that you're noticing it. That's its fuel. Meditation teachers talk about watching the thoughts, letting them pass, observing without judgment. But what if even that act of watching is just another loop? What if the observer is just the latest mask worn by the thought? Consider the experience of trying to fall asleep. You want silence, but the desire for silence becomes another thought. Why am I still thinking, you ask? That question is a thought. The frustration is a thought. The awareness of frustration, another layer. Soon you're 5 thoughts deep, just trying to reach 0. The loop multiplies. Some people chase silence by escaping into substances, others into noise, distraction, chaos. But the thought doesn't care. It adapts. It can hide in addictions, in ideologies, even in love. I can't live without them is a thought that loops. It sounds romantic, but it's a trap disguised as emotion. You see, the thought doesn't need to be negative to be parasitic. Even praise can loop into vanity. Even motivation can loop into burnout. The thought just needs somewhere to land, and you've been trained to welcome it like an old friend. But ask this: have you ever created a thought? Really created one? From nothing? Or have you only received, repeated, rearranged? The answer is terrifying if you sit with it, because if all thoughts are received, then what are you? Maybe not the thinker, maybe just the echo chamber. And so, the thought keeps looping, not as punishment, not even as a flaw, but because that's what thoughts do. That's their nature. Like ripples in a pond, they travel until something interrupts them. But who or what is that? You've tried to escape the loop by replacing it, distracting it, fighting it. But have you ever tried, not believing it, to hear the thought, but not obey? To witness the loop, but not identify? It doesn't mean the thought disappears, but something changes. You begin to see it as other. And in that moment, brief as it may be, the loop stutters. Because a thought that can't hook into identity begins to starve. But it doesn't die quickly. It waits. It tries again. It wears new masks. It says, this one is important. This one is real. This one is you. And unless you're vigilant, it will take you again. Because the thought that loops isn't just a habit, it's a shadow, a mimic, a ghost in the machinery of selfhood. And if you don't know where you end and it begins, it will wear you, forever, thinking you, not the other way around.